before we get into this, let's do some business on the business side of the house. Support for this episode of Cleared Hot is brought to you by what I suspect is everybody's favorite sponsor, Manscaped. They are the best in men's below-the-waist grooming. Manscaped offers precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. They obsess over their technology developments to provide you the best tools for your down-under grooming experience. Manscaped has redesigned the electric trimmer. The Manscaped engineering team spent 18 months perfecting the greatest ball hair trimmer ever created and just released the new and improved Lawnmower 3.0. The third generation trimmer features a cutting-edge ceramic blade to reduce grooming accidents thanks to advanced skin-safe technology pioneered by Manscaped, because nobody wants to bleed out while cleaning up their family jewels. When I tell you that this is premium, I mean exactly that. It's premium. The battery's going to last you up to 90 minutes, so you could take as much time as you want to. Waterproof technology is going to help you groom in the shower. And one of the coolest features is the LED light, which is going to illuminate the target area for a closer, more precise trim. 7,000 RPM motor with quiet stroke technology, and let's not forget about the charging stand. You can, if you want to, show off your mower loud and proud, because this intelligently designed stand is a convenient charging dock powered by USB. If you're listening to me right now and you want to experience it firsthand, get 20% off and free shipping with the code ClearedHot at manscaped.com. Your balls will thank you. Here's the deal, people. Nobody wants to skateboard on gravel, right? You don't see firefighters sliding down a pole that's covered in sandpaper. So let's work the shaft. 20% off and free shipping with the code ClearedHot at manscaped.com. That is 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com. And use the code ClearedHot. Now, since we're already talking about hair below the belt line, let's transition a little bit and talk about hair above the belt line. As guys, it seems that much of our identity is wrapped up in our hair, from how it feels after getting a fresh cut to the way it's perfectly styled before going out. That's why when we get into our 20s and 30s and start noticing the first signs of hair loss, it definitely feels like time for a little panic. Let's face it, no guy is ever really ready to go bald, and thankfully, now there is Keeps, the simple and easy way to keep your hair. Did you know that 2 out of 3 guys will experience some form of male pattern baldness by the time they're 35? The best way to prevent hair loss is to do something about it while you still have hair left. Keeps allows you to get treated from home. You used to have to go to the doctor's office for your hair loss prescription, but now, thanks to Keeps, you can visit a doctor online and get hair loss medication delivered right to your home. They make it easy and deliver your medication every 3 months, so you can say goodbye to the pharmacy checkout line and what could potentially be an awkward doctor visit. Keeps also offers generic versions of the only 2 FDA-approved hair loss products that are out there. You may have tried them before, but probably never for this price. Keeps treatments typically take between 4 to 6 months to see results, so it's important to act fast. The sooner you start using Keeps, the more hair you are going to save. If you're curious, you can find out why Keeps has more 5-star reviews than any other of its competitors, and more than 100,000 men trust Keeps for their hair loss prevention medication. Keeps treatments start at just $10 a month. Plus, for a limited time, you can get your first month for free. If you're ready to take action and prevent hair loss, go to Keeps, that is KEEPS, Kilo Echo Echo Papa Sierra.com/clearedhot to receive your first month of treatment for free. Keeps.com/clearedhot. And lastly, on the business side of the house, let's end on something that I couldn't be more passionate about, and that is mental health and mental hygiene. If there is something interfering with your happiness or something preventing you from achieving your goals, BetterHelp will assess your needs and match you with your own licensed professional therapist. You can start communicating in under 48 hours But let's be clear, this is not a crisis line. This is not self-help. It is a professional counseling done securely online. There is a broad range of expertise available, which may not be locally available depending on where you are. The service is available for clients worldwide. You can log into your account anytime, and you can send a message to your specific counselor. You're going to get a timely and thoughtful response. Plus, you can schedule weekly video or phone sessions, so you won't ever have to sit in an uncomfortable waiting room, as with traditional therapy. I personally do video calls on Thursday, and I was worried because when I started, I was doing them in person, and then COVID hit, and I thought there was going to be something lost in the video calls. There is not. So don't sweat it if that's holding you back. BetterHelp is committed to facilitating great therapeutic matches, so they make it easy and free to change counselors if you need to. It is more affordable than traditional offline counseling, and financial aid is available. BetterHelp wants you to start living a happier life today. You can visit their website and read the testimonials for yourself. They're posted daily. BetterHelp.com/reviews if you're interested in doing that. Visit BetterHelp.com/clearedhot. That's BetterHelp, Hotel, Echo, Lima, Papa.com/clearedhot and join the over 1 million people taking charge of their mental health with the help of an experienced professional. Special offer for the listeners, 10% off your first month at BetterHelp.com. Boom, that's it. We're through the business side of the house. My guest today is a young man of 30 by the name of Angel Cortes. We connected over social media. I think I became aware of Angel when either he or somebody else tagged me on an Instagram post. And I took a look at it, and I found his story, what I could tell of it, to be fascinating. Grew up in Orange County. He does a great job of describing the environment, both from a parental perspective as well as a geographical perspective. Gang life, into the Army, almost immediately going to Iraq, then to Ranger School, his time in Afghanistan, the deployments to those countries, and then the desire to get out of the military and his pursuits in life post-military service. He's currently in school to become a registered dietitian. The man drives a limousine around as his daily driver. Fascinating story. And it renews my belief that regardless of who you are and where you come from, the only thing limiting what you can accomplish is what is between your ears. Episode 141 with Angel Cortes. Enjoy.
Okay, got the red smoke. Gun run! North and south! West of the smoke! West of the smoke! Okay, copy. West of the smoke. I'm looking at danger close now. Come on with it, baby. Give it to me. I need it. You're cleared hot. Copy, cleared hot.
Is it Angel?
Yes.
Angel?
Yeah, it's funny when professors at school would be like, "Oh, is it Angel?" I was like, "No, it's just Angel."
Yeah, like, no, man, you don't actually need to church that up. It's awesome enough as it is. Yeah. Who was I talking to the other day? Somebody had, I can't even remember his name, but it was so much more awesome than Andy. I met a guy one time at an Apple store. His name was Shadow Precious. I made him show me his driver's license.
And it said it?
It said Shadow Precious. Or it was Precious Shadow, one of the two. I was like, you motherfucker. That is the most awesome name I have ever heard. He's like, oh, what's your name? I was like, Andy.
Andy.
Yeah. So anyway, that's a complete divergence. Thanks for making the drive, man.
No, thank you. I mean,
Where did you start from? Because I follow you or have followed you on Instagram. It looks like it's Cali?
Yeah.
LA area?
Yeah, Southern California. Specifically Santa Ana, Orange County.
Okay.
So I was born and raised there.
You had an interesting journey, it seems like.
I did. It was, and I didn't really see it that way until I got out in 2016, and I didn't know if I was going to share what I experienced, if I was never going to talk about it, if I was going to talk about it.
You mean you're pre-military or in the military?
Oh, in the military, and then also pre, and then it turned out to be a pre also. I started sharing, and I realized that I can connect with a lot of people that just they need something.
Yeah, they not only do they need something, I think it helps a lot of other people when they can hear the experiences of others.
Yeah.
I have been amazed, and I don't think it's a big thing at all, but I see a counselor once a week. I'm going through a divorce, which sucks, by the way. And you'll have these oscillations of days where it's like, you know what, everything's going to be fine, and days where this is like, oh, I understand why people put a gun in their mouth and pull the trigger, because it's horrendous.
100%. I almost got divorced. I was away from my kids from half a year, and it fucking sucked.
Yeah.
But
being able to get that help helps so much. And then people will reach out to me. Every time I talk about counseling or focusing on mental health, people reach out and say, oh, well, thank you for talking about doing that. Because you said that, I'm going to go get help. It's amazing to me. So it doesn't surprise me that your story, because again, Instagram is interesting, right? Your life is what you decide to hit post on.
Yeah. It's super weird. I mean, I'm not sure if anybody really saw this, comment, but
yeah.
So I was born and raised in Southern California. I'm the first one in my family to be born in the United States, so which made school very difficult, because the only time I ever heard English was at school.
Yeah.
My parents were split up when super young. They were both super abusive.
What brought them to the LA area? Why did they land there as opposed to somewhere else?
Because I asked. So my grandpa was like, let's go to the United States for a better life.
Yep.
And my mom was just pregnant with my older brother, and she was super young. I'm talking about like 14, 15.
Oh shit.
Yeah. And he told my dad, "You come. What are you gonna do here?" So they went up there, and they first started living with Vietnamese in a mobile home area, and they were bakers. So one of the first things they were doing is they were baking the French bread and the baguettes for Vietnamese sandwiches and stuff like that. So growing up, I was also within the Vietnamese community, but they were hard. My dad was a hard worker. I'll give him that. And he taught me to work real hard no matter what. But they were both super abusive, physically, mentally, and getting your ass beat he was an alcoholic. So if he felt like it and he came home, you were gonna get whipped and real good and real bad. And my mother never stopped anything or whatever. I remember one time it was so bad that she had to call the cops, and it wasn't even because she felt bad of what was going on. It was the fact that she couldn't hide, the bruises and stuff like that, because this time he didn't find his belt, and those boom boxes that sometimes you can put like 8 of those big batteries, and then some, and they're portable, and then you can detach the cable.
Yeah.
Well, he got the cable, and
fuck,
and I fucking did a number, my brother and I remember him. My brother was so beat up, and I was beat up, and then we're crying and we're bleeding, and my brother's puking, and my mom's like, I gotta call the cops, and it wasn't even like because she's a good woman. No, I mean, she's changed, she's changed, but at the time it's because she's like, well, I can't make these dudes wear sweaters because it's in their face, it's everywhere.
What would your dad be like in the days after that? Because I'm assuming that the abuse would happen when he was drunk.
Yeah.
What would it be like when he was in the moments when he wasn't drunk?
He was working. The motherfucker worked. I mean, when I woke up, he was gone, and by the time he came home, if he was gone by like 4 or 5 a.m., and then he wouldn't come till like 5 or 6 p.m. So and then he would come and then just eat, dinner and maybe watch some TV, drink some beers, and go back to sleep and do it all over again. And we never talked about it. It was just like,
Is he still alive?
He's still alive, and he's changed. And I have accepted that my kids aren't gonna, they have a grandpa, and he is like the dad I wish. I mean, he's the grandpa I wish the dad I would have had.
Yeah.
And he changed, which is the only reason I still allow him to have a relationship with my kids and with myself. Same with my mother. My mom was in her graduation picture. For high school, my brother and I were there, and we could both walk. She got pregnant at 13, had my brother at 14, and then had me at 16. So you have that. You can. We were super poor. We didn't really eat or anything like that. I slept on the floor. And we live, and obviously if you're poor, you're gonna live in rough neighborhoods. And for the most part, I skated my entire. And I still skate to this day. I skated yesterday, but I mean, I use skating as a to get away from all.
An escape.
Yeah, to escape from everything. And I would see the gang members, and I would see them. You hear the music, you see them, post in the front and stuff like that. But I didn't pay much attention to them. I didn't know really how they were. I knew they looked scary. I knew some of them looked big, and that's about it. But then I got to an age where I wasn't a little kid anymore, and now they noticed me. And I'll never forget this day. It was in junior high, 7th grade, and one of them wanted to borrow, kick it with a bunch of skaters, so they wanted to borrow one of our skateboards, and I can tell he didn't want to give it back, but I can tell that my friend wasn't going to do anything, and then that's when I realized, like, damn, like some of my friends aren't really fighters. They're not really like down to like,
My friend's about to lose his skateboard.
Yeah. And the way I saw it was like, nah, fuck that. Like, that's our skateboard. Like, I may not be a gang member, but like, dude, like this is our shit. Fucking give it back. And then if not, then I was willing to do something. And I remember one of them, looking at me and pointing at me and saying, look at this guy. He doesn't even know. Referring to like, because I looked angry and I wanted to do something, but I was powerless.
Yeah. Didn't realize who you were squaring off against.
Yeah. So, and I was like, fuck, well. And then, I met some guys at school who were like, oh, we don't like those guys. And I was like, I don't like them either, But little did I know, it's because then I started aligning with them, And then what turns out, well, they were gang members of the opposite gang that, they didn't like.
Gotcha. Okay. Now it's clicking for me.
So,
yeah.
And I still skated, and then a lot of them didn't. They're like, dude, you can't be skating and like kicking it with us, like. And I still skated, and it bugged the shit out of them. They're like, dude, you're like, we're all here, like, they're trying to look tough, and then there I am with the skateboard on the side trying to do kickflips and stuff like that.
Kickflips and ollie in off the curb. That's awesome. What was the impetus for change for your dad? Why did he change?
Honestly, we never even talked. We never talked about it.
To this day.
To this day, and he's not much of a talker. I mean, my birthday just passed July 18th, and I turned 30, and he gave me a hug, an awkward hug. Like, have you seen the movie Step Brothers when they're trying to?
Yes.
It was like that.
First off, I'm so glad that you just referenced that movie because it's fucking amazing.
Yeah. Oh, that
Prestige Worldwide. I'm into it. Boats and hoe.
And so yeah, he gave me one of those weird hugs, and he told me he was proud of me, and then he told me
Had he hugged you before that?
When he was drunk.
Okay.
But the fact that he told me that he loved me, I was like, that's like the third time I've heard those words from you. I'm 30. But yeah, we never talked about it. It's just like I joined the military, and then when I would come back, he didn't really believe it, and then he was shocked, and he was proud of me. I can tell. He wouldn't say it, but I can tell, But then when I would come back, I noticed that he was different, and then when I would talk to my sister and my brother, he's like, yeah, he's changing. He's not really. I don't know what happened. I don't know. And maybe one day I'll sit down and be like, hey, so
what the fuck, man?
What the fuck, man? but I see him with my kids, and I'm like, why would I? I mean, why would I fucking ask that question? That I'm willing to talk about it and sit down, but I'm not sure if he is.
Well, I'm no professional by any stretch, but it might be helpful for both of you, because if the hug that he gave you was awkward, to me, from an outside perspective and having known you for like 5 minutes, I would say there's something there for him too. There's a reason it was awkward for him as well. There's that disconnect.
Yeah.
I look at the relationship I have with my father, and I think it's interesting. Right now I have a very poor relationship with my oldest son due to, I think, largely the divorce, but he's getting ready to turn 17. He hasn't talked to me in almost a year, refuses to spend time with me. And I think about the conversations I want to have with him that I hope that he wants to have with me, but it has to be at a time I think where both parties are ready.
Yeah.
And it sounds like at least your dad might be ready for it, but I would say if you can find it in yourself, I would highly advise and recommend that you have that conversation. And it might be more than one. Yeah. Don't expect it to be this. Have you ever seen the movie The Notebook?
Yes.
It's gay that you said that, right? It's not going to be like The Notebook, even though I don't think there was conversations with parents in that movie. But it's, you know what I mean? There's not going to be a symphony of music, and it's all going to be resolved. I mean, me and my dad have had issues, and it took more than one conversation, but it's that willingness to engage in that conversation. It might, fuck, man, it might change your perspective. I look at the relationship I have with my son now, and, I hope he gets to an age where he can realize that just because I'm his dad doesn't mean that I'm perfect, and that all men are inherently flawed. And he's going to have his own issues too, but I think it'll probably take him getting to the age where he has his own issues and he fucks up a little bit, and then he'll go, oh, maybe I shouldn't think my dad is going to be perfect.
Yeah.
So we'll see. It's a shit show, though. It's rough.
It is. But yeah. But yeah. So then, then I became a gang member, and
you did,
and fast
skateboarding gang member. You son of a bitch.
Yeah,
that's some prestige worldwide shit right there, dude.
But I would use it to my advantage. It's weird, but like, I remember one time I had to go sell some pistols, and I had my hands in my pocket.
How old were you at this point?
16.
Where did you get these pistols in L.A.?
Orange County.
Orange County. Kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
L.A. County.
Yeah. Criminals gonna find ways. And
how did it start? What was your introduction to the gangs, and why did you decide that you wanted to join?
Well, the incident I brought up, they were trying to take a skateboard. I realized that the people I was hanging out with were happy with getting punked. They were happy with being stepped on and stuff like that, and I wasn't. I was never the biggest. I mean, I'm 5'6" on a good day, but I was like, no, that's not gonna happen to me. I don't want that to happen to me. I mean, it's happening in my house. At least I can maybe stop it out here.
Yeah, at least you have a measure of control over you.
Yeah.
Outside of that house. Yeah.
So then once I started hanging out with them, I clearly started hanging out with all the skaters, and but the thing is, I fucked up because I fucked up overall the whole thing. But I did it because I wanted to have backup against these guys at my school. But then now I also have beef with everyone that they have outside of the school.
You instantly inherited that beef, didn't you?
Yes, and I was like, well, I'm already in, so. By 16, I had already owned bulletproof vests, guns.
Guns too?
Yeah.
Where were you hiding this stuff?
Friends' houses, and their parents didn't care, or some of their parents were in that lifestyle too, so it was all cool. And started selling drugs because my mom kicked me out. And I mean, I don't justify it, but it's like I was selling drugs and buying food for my brother and sister, buying them clothes, buying myself skateboards, like putting gas in my mom's car, and buying food and taking them out. I was doing all this, and because of that, and because my fucking dad wasn't gonna do it. My mom could barely do it. I was making more money than her.
So they split.
Yeah.
And then you were living with your mom, and your mom gave you the boot?
Yeah.
Was it because you were involved in the gangs?
No, it started even before that. She wanted me out because I started becoming a teenager, and then, like, let's say I would skate all day, and I'd come home, and we're making noise or whatever. She's got to go to work, and she's like, if you're messing up at school, this and that, you're not gonna listen. But I'm getting older, and I'm like, listen to who? Like, you're not even a role model. Like, growing up, you would say that I ruined your life. Like, that, and all the time she would say, the only reason I still keep you is because I would go to jail if I could just kick you out. So we were always butting heads, and then finally she was just like, if you're not going to change, you're out.
Yeah, I gave you the boots.
And so I'm out.
And how old were you at that point?
17.
Okay.
Yeah. I was out, but even when I was 16, I was like barely home. So I just dove into it, and
Sounds like you were raised by the streets to a degree.
Yeah. A bunch of families would take me in all the time, feed me, clothe me. So that was, I didn't know, like, I knew, like, yo, this isn't going to be forever. I don't want to do this forever. I would look up around the gang members around me, and I'd be like, dude, like, you're retarded. You're not gonna do anything in life.
Yeah,
like,
this is a fucking dead end street.
Yes, and like some of them would see it, and a lot of them wouldn't. They're like, dude, you're fucking stuck in this. And then some of them, they would get whatever it is that caught their attention and that gripped them. That would be it. Like, it just happened to be the gang life for them, because they're that type of person where if it was a cult, they would have just joined it. If it was whatever it was, But I knew I was going to join the military. I mean, I've always looked up to service members since I was little, you know.
Even early on.
Yeah.
Where'd you first hear about the military, and why do you think that is?
I would watch movies, and then I would see, you know, I
Don't
knew.
say Chuck Norris, God damn it.
Well, you know, Van Damme. Yeah, at that time.
JVD, Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Yeah.
I saw a picture of him doing a high kick in a Speedo the other day. Why I'm bringing that up, I have no idea, but it was. I was like, fuck, that is not a lot of clothing that you're wearing, but whatever. You're in your heyday.
Yeah. let him do.
So a little JVD. All right. Who else did you have?
Well, you know, you got Arnold Schwarzenegger. You got, you know, I hate to say it, you know, but fucking Steven Seagal. You know, I mean, all these people were badasses.
How dare you? How dare you?
I believed him back in the day.
Here's the problem. We all kind of did because his movies were kind of bitching. I have a guy staying with me at the house right now who's worked directly with him for like 3 months.
Yeah.
Fuck me. The stories he's willing to say when the cameras are not rolling. Oh. He talked a little bit about it. I've had it on the podcast. He was a Marine, Brian Bishop. And we'll just leave it at that.
Okay.
Steven Seagal. So a lot of people, I think, were exposed to the military in that way, which is crazy because everything you just mentioned, they weren't actually military members. They were just portraying military, no military service whatsoever.
Yep.
And then I can't imagine you would see anybody, or did you know anybody who was in the military?
No.
I was going to say, because I'm sure there's military installations there. And I think Moffett Field is east over by Temecula. But yeah, not a lot of opportunity, I would imagine, for you to rub shoulders with somebody actually in the military.
No. And I didn't see any of it actually until high school.
Or the recruiter's office, I was going to bet, was the first military member you met.
Yeah, high school, they would sometimes come by, you know, so I'm fucking neck deep in the gang life, but I would see them come, and I would talk to the seniors, and I'd be like, man, one day I know I'm going to talk to them. It's going to be my time. And I joined. And
how was that experience? I mean, academically, how were you doing in high school? Did you give two shits about it?
No, I didn't, because so turns out that I need glasses. So sometimes in elementary, if I was placed far away from the board and I couldn't see the board, I was just so used to, you know, getting shit on that when I couldn't see the board, I would never even raise my hand and tell the teacher, like, I can't see the board. I would just be like, well, now I can't see the board. This is just life. So, you know, I mean, I would never hear English at home. So I remember being taken out in 3rd grade, you know, during English like period. Yeah. So I can read kindergarten books, you know, like Sam Likes, you know.
Green Eggs and Ham.
Yeah, stuff like that. And I sucked at school. So when the recruiter at the time, he was like, yo, you just need your GED to pass and you're good. And I took the GED. And I was 17 and a half, so my mom had to sign it. So then I had to, you know, call my sister, like, hey, where are you guys living now? And so she told me. I take the recruiter. My mom started crying. She's like, are you sure? And I was like, yeah, like I've been talking about this since I was little. Like, you know, I got a picture of when I was 7, you know, dudes got like Superman cakes or whatever. And, you know, I told my grandma, give me one with toy soldiers on it. So
the green guys?
Yeah, the 99-cent store plastic.
Bazooka dudes?
Yep.
Or the shitty one, the guy on the radio, like, you suck. You don't deserve a goddamn green army man character. You fucking suck. The guy on the radio, grenade tosser.
Nobody wants to play with the radio guy.
Not when there's a flamethrower and a bazooka option.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Your mom would show concern then, considering you'd basically been raising yourself for so long.
Yeah, and I was super shocked. And at the time, she was changing, but like I didn't care, you know.
Yeah.
I didn't care that she was like, you know, starting going to church and reading on books and stuff like that, and going to classes to help her. At the time, I didn't care about any of that. So I joined, and I joined in 2008, and I didn't know any better. So I would, at my friend's house, he would have cable, and there was the military channel. So, you know, they would always show IEDs getting killed. And the Discovery Channel would have, you know, the documentaries or like special insights on Special Forces, Navy SEALs, and Rangers and stuff like that. And I was like, okay, well, these things, IEDs, are killing a bunch of, you know, service members. And so I walked in with
You said 2008?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that was the peak of IED activity.
Yeah, and that's
like
all.
06 to 08.
That's all they ever showed on the Discovery Channel and you know and National Geographic. So I was like, okay, with my little spiel that I walked in and I was like, my name's Angel Cortes. I see that there's IEDs and I want to do something about them. You know, go after the people or find them or whatever. And they're like, you can either be EOD or a combat engineer. And then I was like, so tell me about both paths. And he told me about EOD's got a bunch of schooling. And at the time I was like, well, besides math and PE, I fucking failed everything. So
That's an interesting pairing, by the way.
I was like, so fucking EOD is out.
Yeah, I think it's at least a 12-month course. I know EOD guys, but I don't know a lot about their pipeline, but it's a lot.
Yeah.
And it continues on and on because they get specialists. I mean, there's people who can, from my understanding, they have the capability to individually disarm like nuclear devices. That's a lot of schooling.
Yeah.
On top of your basics course. So you probably chose the right path if the textbooks weren't treating you so hot.
Yeah. And it paid off because, immediately I went to Iraq within like 4 months.
Of joining the Army.
Yeah. And then obviously completing basic training.
Yeah.
I was in Iraq.
So hold on. So you went to the recruiter. Recruiter went to your mom's house. How long from mom signing paper until you were... Where did you go to basic?
Fort Leonard Wood.
So how long from mom signing paper until you were off and running?
7 weeks.
Damn. Okay. And then boot camp, and then how did they get you overseas so fast? Did you get any occupational training? Or I don't actually know how it works in the Army.
Well, you do AIT and basic training, and then that's about it. For the regular Army. And then I went to Iraq, and then I was blessed enough to be under great leadership. Not directly, but this he's my mentor. His name's Hugo van der Wal, and he's still in right now. He's a lifer.
Officer enlisted.
He's enlisted, and now he's trying to be a warrant officer.
Which is smart. Tail end of the career. You can change your retirement pay drastically.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a smart move.
And he, he saw something in me that I wanted to learn, that I wanted guidance, but I was still, I was a knucklehead, but I wanted it. And he saw it, so he put a lot of his time in, and he saw, he's like, you have a drive, man. Like, and then now I knew that, you need a selection process for SF or for SEALs or for Rangers. Mm-hmm. So now I knew better,
How old were you when you got to Iraq? 18?
18.
Wow. And what did they have you doing?
Looking for bombs on the roads.
So you were doing presence patrol type stuff?
Yeah.
Dismounted or mounted?
Both. I remember one of our first ones, they're like, hey, our partner forces hit landmines. We got to go, help clear the rest of the path. And I was like, okay. And then we're going past this hill, and then there's one of the Toyota trucks blown up, body parts everywhere, and that was like one of my first experiences of instantly just being there and be like, oh, this is real. Okay.
Where'd they put you in the country?
Dailala province.
Dailala province. Interesting. Okay.
And so we did that, and he's developed me as not just a soldier, but as a human being. And he's like, dude, if you want to go be a ranger or something, you should go for it. And spent some more time in the regular Army, and then I dropped my packet, and I made it. And then me being prior service, I'm like, hey man, it's nothing personal, but this is a one shot, one try thing. Okay, if you don't make it, you're going back.
Because you had spent time in a conventional unit, they were only going to give you one stab at it?
Yeah, because they have had like issues or maybe like unwanted, even just minor little things from regular Army dudes. So they're like, yo, man, if you get hurt, then we gotta put you in layover, or you guys aren't making it, you're wasting time or whatever. The attitude of it, like, yo, make it now or fucking don't get out of here.
Okay.
So, and then also because based on my rank, so for me, it was I had to complete RASP, then airborne school, then I did master breacher, so regimental master breacher course, cert, and then ranger school, all in a year. And then
that's a packed calendar.
It is, and I was so into it. I wanted it so bad that I remember when I graduated and I went, they're like, okay, go pick up your diploma your certificate for ranger school. It's like October. I was like, October? My RASP one said October. I was like, in a year? it's been a year. I was like, oh man, time flies.
Yeah. Well, you weren't exactly probably paying attention to the days on the calendar.
Yeah.
You had some steps in front of you. So you were at that point, I'm going to guess 2021-ish?
22.
Okay. Yeah. And probably what, E4?
E5. I had just made E5.
Okay. Yeah. I'd imagine as your rank starts to increase, they're going to give you less options for sure. How'd you like that Master Breacher course?
I loved it. It was
how bitchin' is explosive breaching?
Like I had done breacher courses, regular Army ones and ranges and stuff like that. But that right there, that's 2 weeks of the most high level, high quality, explosive. I saw explosives in devices that I've never even seen, and I was like, oh man, this is why it's special operations. And sometimes, so I went there actually twice. Once as a student and once as an assistant instructor.
Oh, killer.
So both times, I remember one time we had, MARSOC dudes with us, and they were nothing but professionals, and I was like, man, that's super cool. And then we had special forces from another country just come in. And it was great. And regiment was everything that I thought the regular Army was going to be.
Yeah, I think that people look at the military, like if you are raised on the movies that you're talking about.
Yeah.
Your perception of what you're going to sign up for in the regular military is a little bit skewed.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to get, unless you have and from my understanding, an incredibly insane career in the conventional military, you're not going to touch a lot of that stuff that most of the movies focuses on.
100%.
So
100%. And
how was Ranger School?
Ranger School was... Cause at that point, I'd already been deployed. I'd already been in gunfights and stuff like that. And I get the purpose of Ranger School. How do you test somebody who's brand new without purposely killing them? And I think Ranger School is the best way. But for me personally, I'd already done all that other stuff that when I went to Ranger School, I kicked my ass. Of course it did.
Yeah.
They take your food, take your sleep.
Oh, the curriculum works in those selection courses.
Yeah. But at the end of it, I was just like, fuck, this sucked. But I was like, this is what... the dudes that, because, I would get clowned on because I didn't have my tab when I first got to regiment. So that's a fucking huge in there, and if you don't get.
We should explain that because most people won't understand the tab.
Yeah. So you have your 75th Ranger Regiment scroll, and that's what you earn once you pass RASP. And then you have.
And that means you're attached to the 75th Ranger Regiment, right? That scroll does.
Yeah. You're a Ranger,
okay.
and then.
Are you a Ranger? Because you have the scroll, and this is where I get lost too. I know there's a scroll and there's a tab, and then you switch shoulders. Right, once you're in a combat deployment with them. God damn it, I'm lost.
I know that.
Right, you got to unpack this shit, man.
So if you get your scroll, but you're walking around without a Ranger tab on top, and in the tab, it's not official, but you need to get it. And if you don't get it, you're not going to last long. You're going to get kicked out.
Can you call yourself a Ranger without your Ranger tab, but if you have a scroll?
That right, yeah, I say yes, but that right there is
contentious.
Is an argument that social media does all the fucking time.
Okay.
But I got it, so I got both.
Okay.
So I kicked my ass, and I remember being like, man, some of these guys that would say shit, I'm like, this is what it was. This is what you hold it in such high regard. I'm like, you motherfuckers, But anyways, so that happened, and then things started slowing down. And I joined to go fight. I had a bunch of friends killed. I seen a bunch of people die. Things were slowing down, and I was like, I'm not trying to be in the regular. I mean, in not a regular army, but in just the military.
Peacetime military.
Yeah, I don't want to do that. And then at the same time, I told my wife something that I honestly didn't think I was gonna have to do or pay the price. But I told her, I was like, because I missed the birth of my first son. I missed the birth of my second child. I was gone, in Afghanistan. So
we should back up. When did you get married in this process?
Like 6 months into being in the military. But
that's a poor decision.
It is. It is. And if you because most of them end in divorces and it never works. But her and I, we had known each other since we were 7.
Okay.
So
that does help for sure.
Yeah. So it was great, and I married her, and she was super supportive the entire time, and she never told me no on everything that I said I wanted to do, and that I would be gone and this and that. But I had told her because I had missed so much. I was like, when my son AJ, I was like, when AJ goes to school, I'm going to be there on the first day of school. I promise. But so things are slowing down. My son's 4, kindergarten is just about to start. It's time to pay that. And I told her, I was like, she's like, are you going to get out? And then on top of that, I was just so into the life of being a ranger that I totally even missed my exit date, my ETS date. Yeah.
Your enlistment expired and you forgot.
Well, it almost did, and what they were trying to do is that they were trying to get service members to start processing out 6 months to a year, so you can set you up for success.
Yeah, transition time.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
And I was, if I remember right, I was under 90 days, and then I was at the Master Breacher course as an assistant instructor, and they're like, "Hey, man, you're like less than 90 days out. You either got to re-up or start, ACAPing." And I was like, "Fuck, really?" And they're like, "Yeah," and I was like, "Oh, well, fucking, it's almost 8 years. Then time flies." So we talked it over, and she's like, "Sign up for like 2 or 3 more if you really want." And then I was like, and I appreciated that, but I was like, but she's like, but then you're out, right?
But see, that's a tough one because then you're halfway.
Yeah.
And that's the decision point that's tough for a lot of guys. I've seen a bunch of guys get out at 8, fewer get out at 10, and then I've actually seen some get out at like 16 or 17.
Yeah.
They had a better job offer, but if you go past 10, the odds of you making it for the 20, I mean, every day you're closer to the the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, if you wanted to call it that. But
yeah. Tiny little pot.
It's enticing, yeah. So the 75th Ranger Regiment where is that located?
Well, I was stationed in Savannah, Georgia. And then,
my God, it's not cold there in the summer.
No,
That's horrendous.
Well, for us, I guess it was cold because you get used to it over there. And then you have some dudes up at JBLM in Washington.
Yep. I've actually spent a good amount of time there.
Okay, yeah. So I love it there. And then you have headquarters, which is in Benning, still Georgia. Yeah. And everyone who's fucking stationed there hates their life, and they're always angry.
I describe it as being close to the flagpole. Wherever the HQ flagpole is, the closer you are via physical proximity, your quality of life is on a descending curve.
100%.
For most people, except for those who really like being that close, and then I don't trust that person.
Yeah. Yes. I'm so glad you said
it's
that.
Like, why are you pursuing that particular job? Yeah. Okay, you're no longer in the circle of trust. You're definitely not on the Prestige Worldwide tour bus at all.
No,
ever.
No.
So how were your deployments with the Ranger Bat?
So,
and where'd you go and what years?
So, okay, I got deployed 2009, 10, 11, 12, and then the beginning of 13. And all of them were with the regular Army, except my last few ones. I got attached to 3rd Group. And so it was weird because I did everything backwards. I deployed first with 3rd Group with the whole village stability operations.
Yeah, VSO stuff.
Yeah. And I was with the sister team of Major Jim Gant. And then within the SF community, and then outside it, he's really famous. And then, the whole scandal that was...
No, fill me in.
So there's a book written about it. My mentor actually was with that team, and then we were with their sister team. And I talked to him overseas right before, he got sent back, and they tried to kick him out. Oh, well, they did kick him out or whatever.
What was the scandal?
Well, Major Jim Gannett, I hope I don't butcher this, but he wrote a book called One Tribe at a Time.
Okay.
And it outlined basically village stability operations, but they didn't call it one tribe at a time. They called it, VSO. And he was doing great things. And it was, instead of just living in big bases and fighting out, you live with the locals, you fight and you sleep and live with them.
It's part of the larger counter, people hear the term COIN, counterinsurgency. Yeah. The first thing you have to do in that is provide security. And you can do that by actually living with the people that you're trying to provide security for.
Yes. And
it's challenging, though. And it's a very, very long-term strategy. It is not, it's something that'll be measured in days or weeks. That's something that's months, quarters, years.
Yes.
Probably not decades. Hopefully not decades, because that's like a long goddamn time. But yeah, it's a tough one. But yeah, you're living out amongst the local populace.
Yeah. And he was doing great things. And, higher ups, above his higher ups were seeing that and they were loving it. And some of those higher ups in between didn't like it, and they were waiting for a chance for him to fuck up. in my opinion. And he was doing some things that, so what he was doing, and this is what people said, that he was using money to buy weapons and stuff like that instead of for projects to build a bridge or whatever. He was using it to equip what they called his own personal little militia.
So they were saying he was using his op fund to fund a personal militia.
Yeah, but what it is, well, if you're trying to fight the Taliban, and then not just the Taliban, but foreign fighters that, when it comes to special operations dudes, they're going to send their best of the best, to go fight them. His counterparts need to be well equipped, and if the government is corrupt and not giving the Afghans, proper equipment, well, he took it into his own hands to find a way to make it happen and complete the mission. So there was that, and then, he fell in love with a reporter, and the reporter started living with him
overseas.
Yeah,
ballsy move.
Yep. And when you get hurt, you have pain, but if you want to continue, then you got to find a way. And sometimes it might be alcohol, or sometimes it might be painkillers, and then you put them together, and it's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, you're playing Russian roulette. Yep.
And but I know a bunch of dudes who take a bunch of stuff so they can keep going, but unfortunately,
so what did they end up prosecuting him for or kicking him out for? Kind of all of that came unraveled?
All of it, okay. Yeah, all of it. Because some lieutenant, some brand spanking new lieutenant saw what was happening, and he didn't like it.
Ran it up the chain of command.
Yep. And then people that were waiting for him to fuck up, like, boom, we got you. Because he's friends with generals, and people didn't like that, So, but we were doing great things, and we were fighting. When you live in the valley, there's no big base around you. You live in a kalat with the Afghans, and you're fighting.
Where were you at in Afghanistan?
Wardak.
Okay.
And I remember when we got there, and it was with their group. When we got there, they had just lost 3 guys. They took us to where they lost the 3 guys, and you can still see parts of the vehicles, Yeah. And they're like, this is what, because we got there in the winter, they're like, springtime, this is what it's going to be.
Yeah, springtime's game time.
Yeah. And as soon as spring came, like, it was everything that I said I wanted plus more. And then once you really get it, you're like, fuck. Like, then when I see new guys saying, like, I want this, I want that, I'm like, this thing that you want, you don't want. You think you do.
Yeah, I think that is probably the most common tale of warfare in the history of warfare. The idea of, I'm going to go out and be a warrior and come back on your shield or with it.
Yeah.
And the reality of going out there and doing that and watching people get fucked up.
Yeah.
And what it does to the geometry between your ears and the mark it leaves on your life.
And
yeah, I think it's one of the most common narratives of warfare.
Yeah, and I mean, I get it. Like, there's some dudes. I mean, why a lot of us join. It's like you want to get tested, you want to see what you're made of, and you see yourself as a warrior, so you hope you're right. But unfortunately, there's only one way to find out, and that's to get it. And so when you live and fight out of a house, the Taliban bring everything, because you're not in a big base. You're providing your own security. At one point, they tried to overrun our kalat, and they got as close as, being on the other side of the wall.
Oh, no shit.
Grenades started being thrown, IEDs. And you hear that the other local teams, because if we're in one valley, the sister team is in the other, and so on, and then you hear that, they did a liquid IED type thing where it was almost basically like napalm.
No shit.
They got my, my friend was like 80% burnt. The other 2, from what I hear, so my friend I heard from, they're like, yo, he got off pretty well.
Really?
And he's the one with 80% burns. You got, the phone rings, they're like, hey man, it's for you. And overseas, you don't get phone calls, So I was like, oh, and then it's my mentor, and he's like, hey, Pennant got killed. And then 3 days later, you get a phone call, Lily died. And you're like, fucking fuck,
Yeah.
And then dudes are getting hurt, left and right, and you're fighting, and every single fucking day it's something. And we made the news like 3 times that year. One of them was being we had two suicide bombers, and one of them being a dump truck. Like there was this small cop nearby. We would get our supplies, we would get our mail and all that stuff. And then,
Yep. COP stands for Combat Outpost.
Yeah, small, tiny base. And we were there, and it was like almost 5 a.m, and an explosion happened. And then where the SF compound was at, it was almost like on the top of this little hill. And I'm pointing down. And I remember like, yo, man, that's at the fucking gate, dude. Like, that's at the gate. And as I turn around to tell my guy, he's like, yo, that's at the gate. The most powerful force I've ever felt. And I was on top of a truck, and next thing you know, my dirt's in the face, and I'm waiting for everything to like focus again, I don't know what the fuck that was, but I knew I was alive, so I just ran to grab my gear, and then a handful of us ran down there. And because we're like, well, there's earlier that year they had at this other base, they had done a talk like that. They do a suicide bomber at the gate, and then a dump truck, and then they sent dudes in.
Did they offset that? So suicide bomber guy, draw people in, dump truck comes,
Yep.
vaporize, and then attack with the follow-on force, staggered. Yep.
Yes.
That actually makes sense.
Yeah. And so we were like, that's what we all thought. And when we go down there, it's just like, I remember the report was something like 90 Americans were wounded. And when you go down there, you see everything, people dying slowly because the pressure, and they're moaning, real low.
Overblast.
Yeah, they're moaning real low, real soft, and they're just dying slowly.
And you're 23.
Yeah. Body parts everywhere, and then so we're waiting for this fucking force to come, and it never came. And then what turned out to be, if I remember right, the combat controller was saying that as he was talking to the other birds that finally made it, some people were surrounding this other truck, and it wasn't a force that was coming, it was another truck. And
Oh shit.
yeah, and the only reason they knew is that the locals got pissed off because it was right next to a little bazaar, that cop
Probably vaporized that bazaar too.
Yeah, and they got pissed off, and they started surrounding this truck, saying you can't go in there. And
So it was locals surrounding the truck.
yeah, locals were telling them get the fuck out, or whatever. And then they made it obvious when the driver pulled out an AK and started shooting in the air, and then that's when they're like, oh, that's another truck.
Yeah.
And then the combat controller took out that truck.
Yeah, which he should have, yeah.
Yeah.
JDAM is a perfect solution for that.
Yep.
Directly through the driver's side window, please.
Yeah. So the reason why I got to be, and this confuses a lot of people because they know what SF looks like, and they're like, dude, I thought you were a Ranger. This is like SF footage. Well, what the Special Forces guys were doing, instead of putting two teams together, they would supplement with infantry, regular Army guys, So that's how I got to be with them. And then that was my, because, you do your regular Army, so we did a 12-monther. So I got attached with 3 different teams, all from 3rd group, all super good dudes.
Mm-hmm. They would probably rotate into place, and you just would stay there.
Yep.
Which is actually nice because then you can impart some of that local knowledge, the isometrics of what's going on,
Yeah.
patterns of life, all that stuff. That's actually good that you guys were there for that long as they rotated in.
Yeah, and let's call it what it is. Some would listen and some wouldn't because you're a fucking regular Army guy, so whatever.
And that just means the person who won't listen is a piece of shit because knowledge is knowledge, and it shouldn't matter whether it's coming from a dude who doesn't have a tab.
Yeah.
The guy's lived on the ground for 2, 4, 8, 10 months.
Yeah.
Pay attention.
And
it's just ego is all it is.
yeah. And, unfortunately I was right. And this isn't even one of those things where I'm happy or proud or whatever, but, and then people can probably already know who I'm talking about, but there's somebody super famous with, a missing leg that's still operational, and he lost it. He was brave and fought that day, but I called what was going to happen that day. As we left, at the time we would have we would fight with and live with Afghan Special Forces dudes, they were solid, but then we would also have to work with the Afghan police, which were super crooked.
Yeah, the ANP.
Yeah, and when they would come in, I would always have my grenade launcher with me and my M4, but at minimum my grenade launcher. And they would come into like our parking lot area, right?
What were you rolling with? Tell me it was an M79. Fucking pirate gun.
Oh,
Was it a standalone 40 mic?
yeah. It was. Yeah.
Yes.
No, well, it wasn't the pirate one. It was the 320.
Okay.
But I stripped it all off. I stripped everything, and I put a buckle hook, and then I had it right here. So all I had to do was lift up and shoot.
That's what I'm talking about. M79s are bitchin'.
Yeah,
I mean, it's Civil War technology,
Yeah.
but I love it.
It works.
Yeah, you can shave those fuckers down to literally a little pirate gun.
Yeah.
They're awesome.
But I felt like as they were coming in, because some of them would stay on their trucks and they have, machine guns mounted on the back of trucks. I'm like, this dude's sitting in the back of the truck standing here, like, what the fuck? Like, he's waiting to shoot us all or whatever. And so I would always keep at minimum, my grenade launcher in our truck. Because, yes, we have guns mounted on our vehicles, but you got to turn that motherfucker on. You got to turn the crow system, and that takes forever. And then, it might be a minute or two, but that's forever in a gunfight.
Yeah,
So
we should describe the crow system. I mean, it's a remote firing system. What does crow stand for? Crew?
I think control remote.
But it's basically a joystick.
Yeah.
So the person shooting it, imagine I would see him on the top of MRAPs. So imagine a 50 cal on top of an MRAP or two. And I remember it was not the driver's seat, not the vehicle commander seat, but basically one right behind that was the little station where they had the joystick, and you basically a joystick, zoom in and out, pan left and right, and then go to town.
Yeah.
Fire away. I mean, so that's what you're talking about. Yes, that doesn't just imagine firing up. I mean, it's 2020, so you better be firing up a Mac, but imagine firing up a Mac, you got to wait for the scroll wheel to finish, and imagine waiting for that while your life is being threatened and you have incoming rounds.
Yeah.
That's what it means to have to wait for the crow system.
So I would keep my grenade launcher in there. Mission was over, and I would just leave it there. And I remember someone would have a problem with that, and I voiced why I would do it, because we also have our shitters there. So if you're taking a shit, or you're at the connexes, you have nothing, And then some people didn't like it, but then we left, and then like 4 weeks later, it happened.
Really?
And 2 dudes died.
Did the guy just stay up on top of the truck and go to town?
Yeah.
Really?
And just fucking fired away. Killed the 2 dudes, and I think he also killed some of our Afghan counterparts, the good ones. And yeah, so that was my whole special operations deployments. But then when I got to regiment, I missed them all. So by the time I got to first, they're like, "Hey man, everyone's just about to leave. I mean, everyone's already leaving. Like, might as well just stay here. It's already halfway. We're not gonna send you." And then when I went to Ranger School, they got deployed. And then when I was actually out and had a chance, they're like, "Things are slowing down. We're only gonna deploy half."
Yeah.
And at this point, I was like, "What do you mean half?"
They didn't have jobs for everybody.
Yeah.
It went over the kinetic wise. It went over the top of the hill. I would say 2010, 2011. The die was cast on that one. It was slowing down.
Yeah. And so I was like, well, I'm getting out. So I did.
Do you notice a lot of guys were making that decision as well?
Yes.
Yeah.
A bunch of the dudes who I deploy with from third group, they were like, fuck this. I'm out. They lost a lot of experience.
Yep.
And I'm pretty sure it's the same for you guys as well.
For sure. Well, and it's really difficult. I actually think that it was beneficial for me to serve pre 9/11 because I experienced the military and the SEAL community prior to anything even having the opportunity to be kinetic. My first deployment was to Japan. Yeah. And then my second deployment was to Guam. And then it kicked off, and I went through selection on the East Coast and deployed there, and then went to a conventional West Coast team, deployed one time. We were in the Navajara province in 2010, so down east, southeast. And doing VSO. Yep. We built the fire base. I was literally there while we were living inside of the A&A compound when we first got there. That was a fucking experience, FYI. And then built a fire base, a COP, outside of that. And it was interesting because the guys did great, but you could also tell some of them were thinking like, this isn't what I signed up for. This isn't exactly G.I. Joe, because like we've said, counterinsurgency and specifically the VSO, they probably have changed the name for it now. It's a long-term strategy.
It is.
You're not patrolling to contact. Some people would do that. They would want to patrol to contact to get their jihad on. But again, that goes back to the classic tale of this is what I want. And then you get it and you're like, oh, this sucks more than I thought it was going to suck. But yeah, guys, because I saw the SEAL community and experienced the SEAL community when there was nothing, and the only thing that we would fight about was budget and who was better, SEAL Team 1 or SEAL Team 5. It was so funny. They used to have regionally specific, like each team had their area of the world that they were responsible for. Horrendous idea when you all end up in the same place.
Yeah.
And you have different camo and different gear and different call sign patches, and everybody's like, so how do you guys do business? Terrible idea. But I was at Team 5, so we were doing cold weather, and we had my buddies were at Team 3, and they were doing desert. So they'd get desert chocolate chip camis, old school shit, no digital stuff back then.
Yeah.
And I'm getting green Vietnam era camo, and they're just like, dude, those are awesome. I'm like, I know, but I like your tan ones, but I wouldn't fucking give them any greens because they wouldn't give me any deserts.
Yeah.
So we would just, because we had no enemy, we just fought each other.
Yeah.
But, and we would work out, and it was, and at the same time, it was amazing because it was still everything I thought the SEAL teams were going to be. I remember being out at our desert training facility, you know, here's the pallet of ammunition and law rockets. You guys can have lunch when it's gone. Like, oh, I like this. Boom, boom, you know, it was just amazing training, and the camaraderie was awesome. There was no work-life balance. It was just work because work was my life. I was in my early 20s, made some great friends. And then when it tapered off a decade and a half later, it was okay because I understood what it had been before. I can't imagine. I put people through buds in 06 to 08, and these kids, and that's what they were young kids, but they were volunteering in a time of war. When I came in, I had watched Navy SEALs with Charlie Sheen.
Yeah.
And, you know, everybody was the same thing, like, oh man, I hope we get to get it on. I hope that there's going to be a war so we can test ourselves. And it was all hypothetical. And these kids are coming in, you know, and they know exactly, because they're watching the IEDs. They're watching all of that stuff. I had the utmost respect for those students who came in a time of war. It was interesting because some of the instructors still wanted to hate him. Like, fuck these pieces of shit. These fucking new guys. like, hey guys, by the way, if these guys make it through training, you're going to be deploying with them. So maybe take a fucking wrap off.
Yeah.
But that, I get it. I get coming in mid-2000s, get through training, hearing these stories. Your instructors are all combat vets at that point. So we'd sit down and there'd be like a weekly Q&A. And of course the students wanted to hear about that stuff. And then they get to their first SEAL team, and they're to get through their first training rotation, and they get to the Philippines for 6 months because that was going to be their first deployment. And they're like, this isn't what I signed up for.
Yep.
And then they come back and they do a deployment to Afghanistan, where they are extremely limited with kinetic abilities. They're not allowed to do any drops from aircraft. And they punch. They punch at 6 to 8 years. And man, the time, energy, and effort, the investment to get somebody to that 6 to 8 year mark is unbelievable. But I get it.
Yeah.
I get it for sure. And I don't know the solution to that either. I would describe that as a leadership challenge, and maybe managing expectations a little bit earlier in the career. Like, hey, maybe the books and movies, those things are great for entertainment. However, let's start talking about early on a reasonable approach to what you should expect from your career, because it's not Call of Duty. Even in the heyday, it wasn't Call of Duty.
Yeah. Not every day, not every second.
No. Yeah.
You know, but yes, I mean,
were you talking to your parents at all how much interaction did you have with your mom and dad while you were active military and deploying?
I would have more conversations with them when I would visit, but when I was gone, I mean, if it weren't for R&R, you know, like some leave time, never really talked to them. More to my brother and my sister. And I told, yes, I was married, but my wife knew that everything I was doing was going to be for my family, because I mean, she knew I would go to her house when we were, you know, teenagers, and that's when I had dinner, you know, or in high school, I would, on the way home, stop by her house and have dinner there because I knew there wasn't going to be any food. So she knew the deal. So like, for example, my first deployment, I used the money to pay for my sister's culinary arts school. I I bought my mom a car, not a brand new car, but like her bucket, you know. And I came back with a check that I got a few days before I got on the bird to come home, you know. And my wife was leaving. She went back home, you know, so she didn't need any money.
She'd be back in L.A. when you were deployed. Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, you know, everything was for my brother and sister. So I would talk to them a lot, and then just by chance, then talk to my mom and my dad. And it was just the same shit. Like, how things, you know, oh, it's good. Okay, it's good. Yeah, everything's good. You know, they don't want to tell me what's wrong. Yeah. And I don't want to tell them that, well, you know, my friends are dying, and you know.
Absent them having served in the military, that's a tough. Even if they had served in the military, that's a tough conversation to have for sure. And if they had served in the military, it'd probably be the last thing that they wanted to hear anyway. Might be better to have those conversations if they had no personal context. Yeah. Or their own paintbrush to or paintings that they had seen themselves. How's your relationship with your mom now? We rarely talk, and the reason was, you know, it was funny. My dad was the one who gave me all the beatings, and my mom just stood there. She would hit us too, but like she was more verbal abusive, like saying that you ruin her life and stuff like that. But which I would actually argue is equally, if not more, damaging than physical abuse. And I agree, because I have a tougher relationship with her. She's like, you know, you never come, you know, to my house, and I'm like, no shit. Yeah. And we meet up at big events, but when she was changing, she used church, and you know, and I remember I was me being angry and be like, you can't just do that. You can't just say now you're going to church and God forgives everything. Like, that's not how that works. You know, you fucked us all over, and then just because you went to church and you said, well, and she, I'll never forget, she's like, God forgives me, and that's all I need. And whew, that'd be a tough pill to swallow, given what you have described that you experienced. Yeah, so I was like, you know, and she's still at church and stuff like that. And then when I would talk to my brother and sisters, and I'd be like, what are you guys doing? Like, oh, you know, we're at school. She got involved at school. I mean, at church, you know, and she was doing great things over there. But I was just like, and I would hear that she's, you know, takes care of the little kids, and well, all the parents are in church. Yeah, and you know, we would joke like, yo, how about you fucking do that when we were small? Yeah, they may not have been capable of it. Yeah. Not to give I don't want to give either your mom or dad any avenues to avoid the responsibility of how they treated you growing up, but they also, it's possible that they weren't ready as a human being to be able to do that. And that doesn't excuse it by any stretch. I agree. Yeah. I agree, that's what it is. And they still, you know, when the thing comes with forgiveness, I am not a religious person at all. But I fully support people being religious and having whatever relationship with whatever higher power that makes them feel better. And I also don't think that attendance at a structure that other people consider to be something holy is how you determine whether or not you're a religious person. Yeah. You know, I disagree with, well, if you didn't go to church, you're not, like, that's fucking stupid to me. But even in that setting, you know, God forgives me and that's all that I need. I still believe that you need to work through issues as opposed to going around them. Because I personally take that as, well, it's an excuse. You know, that's the easiest way for me to say it. It's an excuse to not work your way through those issues. And it would suck for you and your mom to work through those issues, I bet. But it might, you guys might have a phenomenal relationship at the end of that. Yeah, and I agree. And I think, because I've been out now going for 4 years, so, you know, we're getting used to all of it. And I think it's, do you live close to them now? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, as a matter of fact, my dad lives with me. Okay. You know, the whole coronavirus was fucking the Chinese year of the dumpster fire. It's not over yet, buddy. It's not. We're just halfway. Maybe we went up and then down, and then Elon Musk hit the red button, and now we're off to Saturn. It's not over yet. So he lives with me, but he's, you know, so I see him a lot. But my mom lives just like 4 blocks away, and we do see each other, but like it's got to be a birthday or whatever. But then again, there's a birthday almost every month. So like, I guess I do see her a lot. Yeah. But she's mostly spends time with my kids because I'm at school. You know, I'm going to school to become a registered dietitian, or I'm training for,
you know, at the time when I was competing in martial arts, you know, for Muay Thai fights or now marathons and stuff like that, I'm doing stuff. So like, if she comes over, usually sometimes I just catch the end of her. It's like, oh, you just getting home? I've been here, you know, for a couple hours. I'm gonna leave. I'm like, okay. And then she'll give me. She says she's like, oh, I know you don't like it. I mean, I don't mind it. And right before she leaves, every time she gives me her blessing and she does her thing.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that she's trying.
Yeah.
Trying doesn't again erase responsibility or accountability, and I hope that you guys can come to a place where you can have that conversation. I think it would be meaningful for both parties, but I mean, at least she's having a positive impact on your kid's life, or she's there to support you as you're trying to pursue your education. That's huge. A lot of people don't even have that.
Yeah, so I do see I'm more of a the cup is half full type of guy, so I do see that. So there, you know, I mean, things are all right. They'll get better with them, but
Family's not easy, man.
it's not, you know, and I'm learning it, you know, and once I had my son, you know, yeah, I wasn't an alcoholic or whatever, but I did have things where, you know, I realized that I was so into my military career, I was missing things. And my wife was so supportive, and she sometimes says, like, I was an enabler, you know, like, yeah, I might have been for the military, but I never told you no. You know, you were always gone. And so when I got out and when I did the math, I was like, I've literally been away more from my son than I have. So I get out, my son's 5, and I'm looking at him, I'm like,
He was 5 when you got out?
yeah,
Okay.
I was like, dude, I don't even know you. Like, what do you like to eat? Like, what's your favorite color? What's this and that? And
The question to the 5-year-old, what do you like to eat, is whatever has the highest sugar content in a 5-mile radius.
yeah,
Dad, I like to eat frosting. Oh,
Yeah.
Okay, you little son of a bitch.
oh, they found out real quick that with me, they're like, he's the one who gives us everything,
Yeah.
you know.
But don't go too far with that. It's an attempt to make up on lost time.
Yeah, no.
Because it doesn't, and what you risk doing is spoiling your kids. You got to let them learn their lessons on their own too.
100%, and I had to learn that, and I learned that real quick.
We all do.
But I mean, yeah, I got out, and I didn't know.
So you were in Georgia.
Yep.
Your wife was living with you there. Your son was approaching 5.
Yep.
Do you have 1 kid or 2?
Now I have 3. I have an 8-year-old, my son, my daughter's 6, and then I have a 1-year-old.
Awesome. Is it, what do you have, boy, girl, girl?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Your life's over. In 10 years.
It's over now.
Oh, I know. Okay, so you were making your decision to get out. Was there any question that you were going to move back to LA, or was that just
No.
Okay.
No, her family's there, my family's there, and
Slam dunk,
yeah.
yep.
Washington was cool. The time that I spent there, Savannah, Georgia was cool. The time was, you know, but at the end of the day, these places are beautiful and they have things to offer. If it doesn't have family, it loses its, you know.
Yeah, isolation's a bitch.
Yep. So, at the time, you know, I was into the military since I was a kid, and I was into martial arts since I was a kid. So, I was competing. I was training Muay Thai and kickboxing and boxing, and then I was competing for. Once I got my last 2 years in the military, I was competing. So, you know.
And by that, do you mean you're basically just doing fights?
Yeah, you know, I was being a ranger, and then if you know ask dudes when I was in there, they'd be like, yeah, he's the dude who was using the bags during, you know, PT time in the morning.
Yeah.
Or after work.
It's an appropriate time to use the bags.
Yeah.
It's also why the bags are there.
Yeah. Nobody wants to fucking use them. Jesus.
People don't know how.
No, that's exactly.
That's actually what it comes down to. They don't know what the fuck to do with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know, you would see some dudes on the mats mostly rolling.
Yep.
So it was easy because I was diving into it, and I knew I was, once again, I've just been super fortunate to be under great leadership and mentors and all this and that, because somebody told me, one of the third group guys, he's like, when I called him, I was like, what advice do you have for me? And he'd gone out a year before me, and he's like, be ready for the storm. So when he told me that, I was like, okay, I hear all these stories, you know, all these horror stories about when dudes get out. I was like, I got to cover my bases. Like, okay, the military was my career. The military was my life. That's, in my opinion, when I became a man.
Very formative years of your young life.
Yeah.
As a man. Those 20, I would call the sweet spot of the 20s, and you spent that whole time in the military. So
Yep. So I was like, okay, well, SoCal, Southern California is the mecca of all of these martial arts gyms.
Yeah, it is.
I was like, and our family's there? Hell yeah. So I looked up places to go train at, and
Got a Google of 100 names that came up.
yeah, it was.
SoCal is a mecca of jiu-jitsu, boxing, like it's crazy.
Yeah. And it was funny because I looked up at a bunch of good gyms, and I remember my aunt telling me, because she's like, oh, my downstairs neighbors, he trains. And my aunt's like, she sometimes goes to the gym, but she's not someone to take advice. I remember I just rolled my eyes. I was like, yeah. I'll talk to you about it. I'll talk to your neighbor. Yeah, whatever. And then so I got out right before Christmas. So we're there, and then her downstairs neighbors comes up, and he's like, yeah, I train, jiu-jitsu mostly, at 10th Planet. I was like, oh, cool. And he's like, but I do striking as well at this place called Classic Fight Team. And just by looking at him, I'm like, oh, this dude, he does train. He
knows how to bang.
Yeah. And he's like, come train. And I was like, dude, I was actually going to try out Kane's MMA, but I'll go to your place. So I went to Classic Fight Team, and I trained, with the head coach, Tyler. And the first session, I looked at my brother, and I was like, this is a spot. And which, by the way, my smaller brother, so I paid for my sister's culinary art school, but my brother was too young to do anything for him. So the entire time I was just paying for clothes and food and giving him money, which wasn't really helping him. And
Yeah.
I begged my brother. I was like, dude, just come fucking live with me. So he finally said yes to the last year of when I was in the military. And I was like, you have one rule in this house. You have to train. That's it.
That's a good rule, man.
I was like, you don't have to pay bills. You don't have to do anything. It's just common sense stuff, clean up after yourself, but you have to train. And he's like, okay. And when he got to me, he was my childhood. So like when he got to me, he was malnourished. He was nothing but bones. And I remember I was feeding him. I feed him breakfast. He's like, man, that was a lot of food. And I remember thinking like, that's normal breakfast food. And then it was lunchtime. He's like, we're going to eat again? And I was like,
damn.
And
that was his yardstick.
Yeah.
His measuring stick for quality of life.
Yeah, and because I was gone, I'm sending money and stuff like that, but I'm not.
Was he still living with your mom?
Yeah. And I was like, well, fuck. So I'm building him up, and at the same time, because I'm training, we have the great thing about special operations is that not just the cool guy gear, but you have so many resources. So I'm using, because I'm getting ready for a fight, I'm using the strength and conditioning coach, the registered dietitian, the athletic trainer, and I even use a sports psychologist, because I was having a tough time being like, I'd been to war and I want to compete, but I don't want to kill these people.
How do I find a place to exist between 0 and 100 miles an hour?
Yeah, because like my coaches, the place I was training there by Savannah, Georgia, because Champions Training Center, great dudes there, but they would be like, fucking get angry and this and that, and when to get hyped, and I'm just like, when I do get really angry, well, not even angry, but when I do put myself there, like, that's war. It's take all. It's all or nothing.
And it probably wouldn't help your performance.
It wouldn't,
because the classic tunnel vision, right? You're so focused on one thing that all the rest of the shit starts getting blurry. You're looking through a tube instead of seeing everything. Yeah, you don't want to get. I would imagine, having zero background in fighting, get the other dude angry and exploit the seams in his ability. Exploit the fact that he has tunnel vision.
Yeah,
that's what I would recommend.
And it's funny,
because me personally, if we all have the ability to flip to fucking 12. I get nothing positive done if I do that. And whatever it is that I'm pissed about when that happens, it takes me 5 times as long to unwind the damage that I did by flipping to 12. And I'm not talking about like beating the shit out of somebody. I'm talking about like an emotional state where I get that angry. I just make stupid decisions and then have to spend so much more time unwinding that stupid decision.
100%.
Every fucking time.
Yeah. So like I would even use the sports psychologist, but the registered dietitian is the one who changed my mind, because my life, because I'm going to school to become a registered dietitian, because I thought, because I was like, oh, I'm a ranger, I know everything. So when she was like, this is what you eat, this is what I remember being like, I got to hear, this is, special operations is the top of the top, in my opinion, of the food chain of the world. So what are you going to tell me that I don't know? well, I didn't know a lot.
Yeah.
You know, now all of a sudden I'm recovering faster. I'm sleeping better. I'm going to the bathroom better. I'm
Yep.
like everything, my mood, my energy. I used to crash in the middle of the day and, pound coffee or an energy drink.
What was your let's talk about diet before meeting this woman and diet after.
Yeah, so the diet before was, there's a whole carb up and then protein. I used to eat a whole chicken breast for dinner,
Which you're wee, so you're wee, man.
Yeah.
Chicken breast for me, it's like, that's about right.
Well, for me,
I got a couple pounds on you, though.
Yeah. To me, that was like, it's way too much. Especially since, for competing, you have to be at a certain weight.
Yep.
Me being a small guy, but I have to be at a low weight.
So you'd be carbon in the morning.
Yep.
Protein like a motherfucker. Probably You were probably doing, let me guess, 2 grams per pound of body weight, something like that.
Yep. And I was like, fuck, barely. If I would eat a fruit or a vegetable in a week, I was like, well, that's done. I'm done for the week. Did my part.
Got my greens in.
Yeah. And I was so wrong. But she was teaching me everything. So my brother was like my little guinea pig because I was like, well, let's see what I know. So I just applied everything with him. And then he's training in the gym with me. And dudes would like see him and they'd be like, is he a fucking... There's no way this dude's a ranger. He's a fucking tiny stick guy. And then next thing you know, when you feed him properly, I call him my big little brother because he's bigger than me, but he's my younger brother.
Yep.
He's putting mass on him, and I would test him on the Ranger standards. So if we had a Ranger PT test or whatever, the RPAT or whatever, I would make him do it, and he would fucking kill it. And I'm like, hell yeah. I was like, I know what I'm doing.
Just twisting your mustache, just crafting this beast.
Yeah. So when I got out and that one day I told my brother, I was like, dude, you want to train here? We had already been training together. We'd already fought on the same car together. So he was like, yeah. So when he gave me the nod, I was like, this is perfect. So I started training. I started going to school. And then...
And you picked registered dietitian based off your experience with that woman.
Yes.
Oh, we never covered your diet post. So we did the diet before.
Oh, yeah. So right away, I'll never forget. She's like, the way she knew how to talk to Rangers because she's like, what would you say if I could make you 5 to 10% faster and stronger? And that's when I was like, okay, you got my attention.
Yep.
And she's like, okay, what do you do? What's your lifestyle? This and this. Asked me a bunch of questions, and then she made me a meal plan. And she's like, eat this and call me in 2 weeks. And I remember I got home for dinner. I told my wife, okay, can you make this for dinner? She's like, yeah, we have everything here. And she brought me the plate, and I was disgusted with the amount of protein that was on there. I was like,
portion size
shrunk
on you?
Yeah. I was like, there's no way this is 3 ounces. She's like, look on the scale. I put her on the scale, and I was like, that's 3 ounces of a lean meat? Like,
it's about
that
much.
Yeah. And then immediately I noticed that my carbs were so much lower. And then on the plate was, a mixed green salad.
I was going to say probably a shit ton of green.
Yep. And then on the side, I had an apple and I ate that. And when the 2 weeks came, I told her, I was like, everything's improved, I'm not crashing in the middle of the day. I'm killing my workouts. I'm recovering faster.
Did she have you eating more frequently as well?
Yes.
Smaller meals more frequently throughout the day?
Yeah, I used to have maybe two big meals.
Oh, and then of course after those, coffee.
Yeah.
Because you're freaking tired from all of you just and then all the blood is like you're just what's happening?
And I leaned out because I was eating way too many carbs, way too many protein, and then when you eat too much protein, it just turns into fat. And I leaned out, and I was like, this is what I want to do. Because when I made the decision to get out, I had an uncle, which at this point by marriage, he became my uncle. He was in the Marines. He got out, and then he became SWAN. He was like, dude, come. Fucking,
in L.A.?
Yeah, in Santa Ana. And he was like, dude, be SWAN with me. I was like, it sounded so cool. But then, I'm starting to realize things like, dude, you miss so much of your kids. You got a daughter, your wife, you miss so much. Like if you're going to get out and just go into the same, type of environment.
You're trading one uniform for a different color.
100%. So I was like, you know what? I owe it to them. I'm going to go to school. And I fucking failed everything in high school. I was a terrible student. But
Did you have issues getting into college because of that? Because of your GPA?
Yeah, I had to go to community college first, and then
Okay.
my placement test. You know, so I had to start low, like whatever college.
Work your way into it.
Yeah, and I was like, I owe it to them, and I owe it to myself and to my family, because no one in my family at that point had ever been to college. No one has a degree, so I was like, I'd done all this stuff.
What were you doing for work during that time while you were going to school?
So the GI Bill gives you a
Stipend.
Yeah,
That's right. I forgot about that.
but it's fine print. It's only when you're at school, which I didn't know, because in between spring and summer you have to figure something out. So I would have to work at yogurt shops, you know, acai shops, do these odd jobs, and I hated my life because, you know, I went from having a house on base and having money to the point where our only issue was how many times can we go out this weekend. You know, and
Yeah.
it was dark times because I remember, you know, the GI Bill doesn't kick in or when it's over, and I'm working at these yogurt shops in California. It's expensive, and I remember at one point I don't even have my own place. I'm living in my sister's house with, to be honest, at the time I didn't really know her fiance. I was like, I'm in this stranger's house. My family, my kids, we live in one room. I'm like, what the fuck am I doing? Like I was a fucking Army Ranger. I had money. I had a house. Now I live in a room and I have $15 to my name. And tomorrow I got to go to a yogurt shop that I have teenagers in Newport Beach yelling at me because, you know, their fucking bowl isn't done right away when I'm literally cutting fresh fruit in front of them. Like, this is fresh food, not fast food.
Yeah.
You know, so I was doing that for the longest time. But at the same time, I wasn't really into social media until like how I am now. And I started sharing pictures, and then because the dudes from third group didn't really care if I had a GoPro, you know, I started sharing combat footage as much as I could.
Yeah.
Because a lot had to be deleted because even I didn't want that.
Probably best that it was for all involved.
Yeah. And then dudes would message me, be like, "Hey man, like," and it always start the same in the beginning. It'd be like, "Hey man, like, no offense, but like, you're small. How did you become a ranger?"
The response to that is, go fuck yourself. But also, this is how I did it.
Yeah, and what I realized is that, you know, a lot of people think that you have to look like Thor or Captain America to make it.
It's better off being your size. I am I'm not abnormally tall. I'm 6 foot tall, usually floated around 205. I am big for most SEALs.
Okay, yeah, I mean, well, to be honest, everyone's bigger than me, so you guys are all big.
But I oftentimes would look at how nimble and how fast guys your size could move. God damn it, I wish I could move like that.
And, well,
Pros and cons.
Pros and cons.
Pros and cons.
But then I started thinking, you know, like, okay, well, the famous ones, you know, like famous special operations dudes, they're all fucking monsters. You know, you got Jocko.
Yeah.
You know, you got, you know, Tim Kennedy.
Jocko's only 5'3", though.
Really?
No, it's a total joke.
Okay, I was gonna say he looks 6'3".
No, I think he's 5'11". I'm about an inch taller than Jocko.
Oh, see, and David Goggins. There's you. You know,
Tim Kennedy is maybe 5'6".
you know, but he's got.
That's also not true. Just so you know. I'm
Okay.
just fucking with Tim. No, Tim's a beast.
Yeah.
Goggins is tall but lean. Yeah.
So like everyone's big, and they see me, and they're like, so they ask me, and then I would tell, and then right away, and then I would click on their profile, and it'd be like a college kid or a high school kid, and then it'll be like, I'm only 190 pounds, and I'm like, dude, I never made 190 pounds while I was in.
Yeah, sucker. I've never seen the 190 rigging on the scale. So
Yeah, maybe with kit on.
that's what I was saying. Maybe kit fully loaded and water.
So I knew right away that it was a mental thing. So I would tell them, I'm like, dude, it's gonna sound corny or lame, but it's everything is more mental than anything. Yes, you have to meet the physical requirements, but it's mental strength over everything. And I had, at that point, I'd already known that, but I had never had civilians come at me that way, because everywhere that I went, dudes that looked like Captain America were fucking quitting. You know, if it was Ranger School, RASP.
I tell people this, the only muscle that matters in any of these courses is the one between your ears.
Yes.
That is it. Show muscles mean fuck all in these selection courses. And if I'm being totally honest, take great pleasure in watching these show muscle, show pony fuckboys come into training because they thought they were going to get an IG profile out of it, or they were going to have, you know, whatever they wanted things for. What would be the best way to describe it? Ulterior motives.
Yeah.
They were not there for the right reason, but they sure looked like a guy had chiseled them out of stone.
Yeah.
And I would hear the symphony of the bell ringing when they quit. I'm like, you can place your helmet here and fuck off.
I remember at pre-rasp, right before we classed up, there was this huge dude and his friend, and he tapped his friend and he's like, look at these two, and he was talking about me and some other guy, and he laughed. He's like they think they got a chance, and 2 weeks later, both those dudes quit.
Yeah. The fastest runner in my buds class quit. The fastest swimmer quit. And I believe they quit on alternating events. So the runner quit on a swim, the swimmer quit on a run, because they had come there so conditioned from a collegiate background of success. You're not developing mental toughness when you get success after success and you have a training department fawning all over you. I weighed 165 in buds. I didn't hit 200 pounds until I was my mid-20s.
Yeah.
And then it takes a heroic effort for me to get under that now. But I grew into myself. I was 150 pounds when I graduated high school. I was 6 foot tall, 150. So stripped 55 pounds off me right now. I was a beanpole. People are like, yeah, you're going to be a SEAL. Pfft. You know? Yeah. And I was completely fine with them thinking that, because in between my ears, I knew that was the path that I was going to go. But and the show muscles, that's what they're for. But
nobody knows that but us. You know, the outside world doesn't know that. They don't see that. Hollywood, and I blame mostly Hollywood, you know, for that, because that's not who they, you know, call to be the lead actors.
That's correct.
So, and then even in war, because I remember third group, they, you know, there was support. They needed a mechanic, and we just picked him up, and he was this massive fucking dude, and you know. And we started taking contact and got out. And I remember getting out the truck, seeing him. And then when the firefight was over, you know, and, you know, somebody had to get medevaced out, you know, after it was all over, I went back into the truck and he was still in there. He never got out.
Yeah.
And then when we got back, you know, the fucking Alpha was like, get him the fuck out of here today. Yeah. And he was fucking gone, and he never even fixed the generator that was supposed to fix, or whatever the fuck it was, the razor.
Another thing people forget too is big dudes, when they go down, it is not like picking up a barbell. No. A human body that is
dead weight.
Oh my God. But a 200-pound person, we're talking 3 people to move that. Yeah. When a wee man goes down, it's a little easier. Oh yeah. But it would take 4 guys your size to move me if I was in full combat gear and I'm face down and I'm just literally trying to play a sack of potatoes. It's not this run over, hey, buddy, jump on my shoulder as you're sprinting through gunfire. Yeah. It is the ugliest, most heinous evolution of dragging those fuckers inch by inch by inch. Yeah. Gear is flying off. Yeah. It's not good. Yeah, that doesn't show up in Hollywood movies.
So I would have these dudes ask me that, and I would talk to them, and then, you know, obviously the cool guy pictures in the video started getting attention. And then me telling them, and for the longest time, I didn't know if it was helping, you know. I didn't know if the advice was gonna go anywhere. And then like 6 months into it, and also because it gave me purpose. At the same, I got to mention this that part of the storm that the dude from third group hit to tell me, it didn't hit until 3 months out. You know, I call it the honeymoon phase. Yeah. Everything was great, and I remember telling my wife like,
"It's awesome. I'm out."
Yeah, I was like, I even told her, I'll never forget, in the shower, I was like, storm? What storm? Like, things are great. And it all fucking hits. And then one of them, it being like, I lost my lack of purpose, my sense of purpose. Yep. And then me helping was fulfilling some of it, you know? And then 8 months into it, into me doing this, you know, somebody's like, dude, hey, I'm not sure you remember me, but like, I'm on the way to RASP. And then, you know, a couple months after that, you know, like, hey, dude, here's me with my tambourine. And then at this point, it's been, you know, dozens.
That's an amazing thing.
No, of dudes, yeah, with tambourine. And then, so like, and then I started, it got to the point where so many people, I started making videos because I was like, my wife would be like, hey, we're at the park. be with us. I'm like, yeah, but I just got to tell this guy, you know, I'm trying to help him out. And then I would record the videos. So if they asked me the same question that someone else did, I'd be like,
it's an easier response.
Yeah, watch the video. And then if you have more specific questions, come back at me.
Yeah.
And then, you know, sometimes it wouldn't even be that. I would talk to them and then be like, hey man, we talked a while ago. I wanted to be a firefighter or enter the military, and like, hey man, talk to you helped, and now I'm a firefighter. And I was like, dope, dude.
Yeah.
And then bigger Instagram pages would take my combat footage and obviously and then I would get more followers, and then by that it would, you know, spread my story. And then dudes would hit me up and be like, hey man, I'm from the same area. Like, but now it's not college kids who are athletic, you know, want to be in special operations. It's dudes who are like, dude, I grew up in LA. Like my parents, you know, it's the same thing. And like, in seeing that somebody made it out, like it gives me hope.
I can only imagine the hope that can give people coming from that situation.
And that I like doing the whole helping dudes who didn't live that, but now the fact that those people were messaging me, that's when I realized like this thing was way bigger than me. And they're like, dude, you give hope and to people like me, and that's every single day, almost every single day. And I realized like how many of small dudes who are firstborn generation who are fucking beat and malnourished make it into special operations and then get a college degree, and then now you're doing this and you're doing that, and when other people see it, it means a lot. Well, and then I think about when I was small, I didn't see any of it. The only thing I saw was the dudes on TV, and I'm like, that'd be nice. You know,
be nice to be 6'2".
Yeah, you know, I want to be in the military and stuff like that, and so that's happening, and it became bigger than me. And at the same time, instead of and also doing things on Instagram, I started doing things in person.
Really?
And what helped me was, and it shouldn't be like this, but just the fact that you're a special operations guy, people will listen. And if it's good advice, and let's just say a mechanic said it, it doesn't change the fact that the advice is right. But unfortunately, people are more willing to listen because of who you are.
Which is it creates a dangerous ecosystem, because snake oil salesmen can manipulate that.
Yes.
And not everybody with a tan beret or a trident is a good person.
100%. And I say that all the time. Just because you're a service member or in special operations does not make you a good person.
I'm dying. I went down the wrong pipe. Even though there's only one pipe, it went down the wrong one. No, it's something I caution people against often.
Yes. And what helped me to seal the deal to do things in person more was my buddy Ryan. He was a former Ranger too, and I met him at a community college. And I remember a veteran at the Veteran Resource Centers, a veteran was saying like, "Hey man, I'm having trouble sleeping and can't focus and stuff like that."
Not an uncommon statement.
Yeah, and my friend Ryan was like, "Hey man, you should get that checked out." And he's like, "No, seriously, like go to the VA. You know, there's information here. You should do that. You know, get yourself checked out." And I remember, I'll never forget, like some Marine was like, he's like, "What did you do in the military?" And he's like, I was an Army Ranger. And he's like, oh, and then all of a sudden they made it okay. What he had just said, made it okay.
It was validated through a job title.
Yeah, and then the next semester, he's like, whether he did this on purpose or not, but the way I saw it was like, well, he wanted to step up. And then he's like, well, I'm going to be the president of the Veterans Club here. And then the mood, the energy, and everything shifted from that semester. You know, things were, dudes, I would hear dudes who unfortunately were veterans would be like, man, C's get degrees. Why are you studying? You know, or I'm just doing this to get the GI Bill. And it's
that's not a good mentality. C's get degrees.
Yeah, it's not. It's not. And he changed that. It's like, dude, we should deserve to be the best. We you know, after everything that we've done, we have the resources, the tools to do great things out here, and I do believe it. And I started doing that, and then I would host the UFC fights at my house, and I would have my dad cook. He's a great cook. He's actually done like huge events for the veteran community now, He just did the last Ranger panties at the beach, and there was like 50 of us. He's a great cook. So I would have him do that, and then I would host little events at my boxing gym, because the boxing coach, I train at Raw Time Boxing. You know, he was like, dude, I was telling him that I need a place to like have people, you know, hang out, because I just don't want like random people at my house.
Yeah.
Because the thing's getting bigger. And he's like, use my boxing gym. I was like, perfect. And then, but then I realized a bunch of dudes don't really like fights. You know, they're not really into the UFC and stuff like that. And not just that, but what I realized is that, well, we're all watching the fights. There's not much interaction going on. Yeah, we might be like, dude, that was crazy.
Yeah.
But then, so then I started doing shooting courses. I would buy vehicles, and we would shoot to and from vehicles and talk. Because
Is this where the limousine comes into play?
Yeah.
It's hard to miss that massive white limousine that you roll around in. So you're going to have to explain that a touch.
So
Please tell me it's your daily driver.
it is my daily driver.
Fuck yes.
I take that thing everywhere. So I bought the limousine because I'm big family oriented. So like in the 8 years I was in, all the money I made, I gave it to my brother, my sister, and my mom. And when I got out of the military, before I got out, I was like, I want to get out. I don't have anything to be like, I bought this while I was in, like, this is mine. So, and I always wanted a box looking car. So I got myself a 1990 BMW. It was a piece of shit when I bought it, and I tried to fix it up, and then I've been fixing it up. But it has so much. There's so much wrong with it, because when the guy told me that there was a few issues, and then I had my buddy, my other Ranger buddy, we drove to South Carolina, and I get there, and then the guy's like, "Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention this, and that."
I forgot to mention these other few issues.
Yeah, so none of the lights even worked.
Oh, fuck.
So I was like, dude, we gotta make it back before
Dark.
And then the you know how straight is the steering, you know, for the steering wheel? No, this was.
Yeah.
So
That's normal. Like a 20-degree list is totally normal to drive straight down the road.
The seat was broken, like all this thing. So I've been fixing it, and then they took a dump on me, and my wife was like, enough with the BMW. Like, I get it, but like, so we're like, okay, well, we're about 8 months away from paying off the Xterra. You know, they're like, so do I buy something brand new for me? And she's like, well, then we'll just add another car payment. They're like, how about no more car payments? You buy something up
Outright.
And I was like, and I've always wanted a limo because of Viva La Bam. For people who don't know that, it's a show of a skateboarder and a pro skater and his friends.
Are we talking about Bam Margera?
Yep.
Yeah.
And Ryan Dunn would drive a fucking limo, and that was his daily. And I was like, yo, that is the coolest shit. When I was a teenager, and I would watch that. So I was like, okay, I need to find a limo. And sure as shit, I found one. And since it was, you know, the beginning of COVID, you know, people were losing their jobs, and this dude, he was a Toyota mechanic, you know, dude, specialized in Toyota trucks. And obviously people aren't trying to take their trucks to get fixed, and he's like, I got to start selling stuff. And then he had a couple cars on his lot, one of them being a 1990 Lincoln Town Car limo,
Pure white
on 22s.
Of course it is.
So I went to go drive it, and I fucking fell in love with it. First of all, I had AC the entire time I've had that BMW when I bought it. So now I was going 5 years. I never had AC. So in Southern California, I never had AC. The seats worked. And
what kind of MPG are you getting on that limo?
Probably not worse than a truck.
Well, it depends what kind of truck. Were you getting about 15 to 20 on that thing?
City, I think it's 17.
I might have to look at getting a limo. It's not bad.
But then again, my lifestyle is super basic. It's the gym, you know, because I still train.
Yeah.
School, and that's it.
You drive the limo to school?
Yeah.
Fuck yes.
But since COVID started, I haven't been going to
online school.
Yeah.
What was your experience like? How old were you when you started school? College?
26.
26 with a dossier of combat experience under your belt. What was the experience like sitting in class with 18, 19-year-old kids?
I'll tell you what, was a little nervous about school, but I knew I was a different individual. I was molded because of the great leadership I was under into something different. So I knew if I just applied myself, I could pass the classes. I was getting A's and B's, but I wasn't very social. And it was funny. I'd been to war. I'd done all this and that. I jumped out of airplanes, but I was pretty nervous and afraid to just turn to my peer and be like, my name is Angel. Hi. And then Ryan changed that, so for my first semester, I didn't really make any friends. My first friend was actually a Marine. Her name was Isyadira. So she was my first friend, and then she introduced me to Ryan. She's like, oh, there's another Ranger here, you know that, right? And then I was like, make friends with him. And then, but making friends, and obviously going to school, to get the full experience, you have to give it a shot. You have to learn from them. And then I quickly realized once I did is that they want to learn from us as in veterans, and they have a lot to teach us as well.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
And once I would voice, and then I realized that I have a lot of life experience that these guys don't. And they would say things, and then I would raise my hand and, say what I experienced. And they were, like, oh, they want to listen, and unfortunately, veterans have made, some shitty ones have made a reputation for, us in school, and I remember one day a peer is like, he's like, hey, you make great points. I like when you speak in class, and it's, history class. And, like in the beginning, I didn't really want to listen to what you were saying because I thought you were like other veterans in my other class. They're like, but, I've never met a veteran like that. And then they would see me and they're like, how come you're not like angry? And like, do you have the PTSD? And so they saw me, my work ethic, my performance, and it may be an open to be like, can you help me with this? Like, I don't know it. Help me. Like,
yeah.
And I dove into the whole experience of school. So in the beginning, it was kind of scary, but then once I got into it, and the professors would be like, "Hey, you're one of the best students I've had." But obviously, because I'm all tatted up, so like when it's summer and it's tank top, and I walk into a classroom, sometimes some professors don't
judge. They're judging a book by its cover.
Yeah, like in my microbiology class. First of all, so to become a registered dietitian, the vast majority of them are females. So some of my classes are only full of females, and I'll never forget my microbiology professor was like, he looked at me, and he's like, "This is a serious course, and if you're not in here for the right reasons,"
he thought you were there to pick up chicks.
Yeah, he's like, "And if you're not in here for the right reasons,
yeah.
you're wasting your time." And then at the end, he was like, "It was a pleasure to have you in my class." So I'm still in school,
How much more do you have?
10 months.
So you're almost there.
And then I do my internship.
Where are you going to do that?
I want to do it at the VA Long Beach hospital. Do my internship, take the national exams, and then I'm a registered dietitian.
What are you going to do with it? Long-term goals?
I want to work because I realized that for special operations guys and the regular Army guys is that they all think they know how to eat, but they don't.
They don't get taught to either.
And that's the thing. That's the biggest thing. They don't get taught.
Yeah.
But then when you look at the prices for a registered dietitian, like for example, when I went to go see one because I wanted to continue seeing one, because I kept competing when I got outside of the military, and obviously not that I'm not in the military, I don't have that resources, so I had to go pay for one. Her initial hour was $120.
It's going to turn a lot of people away at the door.
Yeah. So what I want to do, and I want to do that, I want to give, because for me, because with the way I was raised, anything past having rice and beans in my house, it's extra. So I don't plan on charging veterans or military anywhere near the $120 or law enforcement,
Yeah, I was going to say you might want to look at even the EMS, first responder world.
Yeah.
Firefighters, ambulance, EMT, police.
Yeah.
They're in need of it too. I mean, I have friends here who are on the LEO side of the house, and they age in dog years. They're up on the opposite side of the clock.
Yeah.
Their circadian rhythm is jacked. there, and you know how they'll go from, and they're shifting it now. And if any of them are listening, and I misspeak about this, but it used to be, I think, 4 days on, one shift, like call it a swing shift, a week off for how many days they would get on, and then it would shift to a different time of the day, more days.
Yeah.
4 or 5 days off, different time of the day. So I guarantee you they're leveraging caffeine heavy to try to stay awake during those circadian rhythm shifts, which is going to fuck with your appetite, your digestion, your absorption of all that stuff. Those communities need it as well.
Yeah. So because in the beginning I was like, well, I train at these gyms, and the gyms I train at, you know, they got professional fighters. I'm like, man, it'd be dope to work with one of the fighters. But I realized, like, because you know the whole purpose thing, where I was losing the purpose, I was like, am I really going to feel fulfilled working with? And it would be nice to work with professional athletes. You know, don't get me wrong,
Yeah,
but
you could do both though too.
I could do both. But I was like, if you're a pro athlete and you need a registered dietitian, for the most part in life, you're okay. You're just trying to be peak. Meanwhile, you know, dudes in the military or in law enforcement, like, they're in dangerous jobs, and they should, you know, be optimized to the best of their abilities to do these jobs, so they can come home and be safe and you know. So I was like, okay. And then we would have registered dietitians come and speak with us, and then they're like, we need some in the Latin community, because in the, you know, Hispanic community, there's obesity is a big issue, because Mexican food is fucking delicious, but when you see how it's made, you're like, well, fuck.
No wonder it's delicious.
Yeah. You know,
I agree with you on that one. Mexican food is delightful.
Yeah. So I was like, and then they're like, you know, we need people here to work in these low-income communities, and I'm like, well, that's where I came from. That's me. You know, I mean, that's not me now, but that is.
Yeah. Are you
like,
going to stay in that community, or working with that community? Do you have any desire to move out of SoCal?
As of right now, no, because my family's there. My wife's family's there. You know, the relationships I have with the martial arts gyms, I tell dudes, like, who are, you know, servicemen, if you get out, join a martial arts gym. You know, try it out. Like, and it is the closest thing to a military community that I've been. You know, maybe like that's how it is in law enforcement, but like I've never been in law enforcement, so I can't speak on that. But what I mean by it is that in the gym, you will get tested physically and mentally, and you'll have
a community of people that are doing exactly the same thing.
Yes.
On a voluntary basis.
Yes.
They're seeking that crucible or testing ground, and camaraderie is just a combination of shared suffering and humor.
100%.
Which is exactly what happens on the mats.
Yes.
Like, I'm sorry, I just kicked you in the balls. Ha ha ha.
Yeah. Yes. You'll be shaking hands for a dude who, you know, kicked you in the face or whatever. But
and you'll be closer for it, actually. And I'm not recommending that people kick other people in the balls or face to become closer. When it accidentally happens, it builds that bond.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of them love the military and law enforcement. You know, like, for example, I remember when I first got out. And I realized that the GI Bill is cut off when summer hits, you know, I can't pay for my brothers and my membership. And I remember I told the gym, Classic Fight Team, and then the boxing gym, Raw Talent Boxing, I told them, I was like, hey, you're going to have to cut my brothers and I membership. I can't afford this. They're like, no, just, dude, keep training. Like, we love you guys. Like, you guys bring great energy. Keep training. And then when you get situated, we'll start it back up.
Yeah.
You know, and then I was also training at a CrossFit gym, you know, because you know, I lost the multi-million-dollar gym facilities, but the CrossFit gym, no offense to CrossFit, but like that gym was like, yeah, man, when you get money, come back, you know. But what I'm saying is, like, those gyms were like,
it's a different bond when there's no physical contact. Because I owned a CrossFit gym for a while, and I worked for CrossFit for 8 years. But there is a difference between doing thrusters next to somebody and then slapping hands on the mat and going to town.
Yeah, and getting choked out.
It's completely and utterly different, and the bond is far, far deeper in the non-exercise realm, in the slap and bump and, hey, buddy, let's simulate murder.
Yeah, yes. Yeah.
Inside of some rules. Because there's that huge level of trust.
Yeah.
So I actually just, on my way down here, I was doing a jiu-jitsu class up in Whitefish, and you're doing joint manipulation that could blast joints if you kept going, if you didn't stop at the tap, and chokes that could put people to sleep and then kill them. But that you're placing your trust in your training partner, and that is a deep bond.
And yeah, and then what I love about it, because unfortunately some service members get out and then they're not being told go work out, so they get out of shape. What I like about the martial arts gyms is that you're doing all this, which sounds super cool, and it is super cool, but low key you're getting a workout, and at the end at the end of the session you're soaked, and you're like, oh, I worked out. And then nothing against like 24-hour fitness gyms, but if you're a veteran and you get out and you don't have friends immediately, a 24-hour fitness gym, you go in for your hour or whatever, you're working out, you're not talking to anybody, you're not building relationships, and then you get out and you go home.
Yeah, you're probably hiding in the corner making noises that are making other people uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And probably just don't wear your Ranger panties in there either.
Yeah,
we should talk about that. They're unacceptable.
People, I remember the first time I wore some outside, and my family members and my friends were like, dude, what are you wearing? Are you wearing short shorts? And I'm like, nah, dude, you don't get it, man. Like,
no, these are the shortest of shorts.
Yeah. You don't get it, dude. It's a Ranger thing.
UDT shorts are a team guy thing, and they have no function other than embarrassing the individual that is wearing them. It's fucking ridiculous.
Yeah.
Do you think what you lived through growing up, did it prepare you better for military service?
I used to think so, but then after seeing some individuals who've come from certain backgrounds fail, for me, yes, but it's not a given. I'm not saying like if you grew up in a shitty neighborhood that you're gonna kill it, because you have to want to.
I mean, almost beyond the geography of where you grow up. I mean, it sounds to me like you suffered mental and physical abuse, and you grew through that until you achieved a place where you could escape it. And I'm not trying to put any positive aspect on living through those things, but I think it hardens the mind to a degree.
Oh, it did, because 100%, because while dudes were complaining,
in the back of your mind, you're like, bitch.
Yeah, this is. I was so used to just. It sounds fucking weird to say it out loud, but I was just used to getting shit on that in the military. I was just like, I was already like, yeah, this is what it is.
It sounds like it was already a step better than where the environment you were coming from anyway. So their version of shitting on is probably not a bad day for you.
Yeah, I mean, in basic training, I was gaining weight, but dudes were losing weight. I was like, I'm eating 3 meals here at boot camp, and then also when it came to war, I wasn't shooting machine guns on the streets or having RPGs sent to me, but like, I'd been stabbed. I got stabbed in my head. I'd been shot at. And it goes both ways.
Mm-hmm.
So war wasn't the first time me experiencing violence towards me, and then me expressing it
towards others.
Yeah. Seeing dead bodies wasn't the first time, or seeing people get hurt. I mean, obviously, a body looks different after a blast.
Yeah. It's actually hard to describe what that looks like.
Yeah. Not like what the movies makes it. Yeah, that's for sure.
At all.
And for I would always say my childhood, made me for this. I was made for this. But then I've seen dudes who were born in similar situations and they just fuck it all up, and they're not as successful and stuff like that. And I think a big part of that is because they don't want to buy into the military thing. They don't want to listen. They don't want to be taught. They don't want to admit, like, hey, you don't know everything. You're not that tough. You're gonna get your ass handed to you, but it's gonna build you.
And regardless of background, you have a choice when it comes to your experiences. And I didn't live through anything, even remotely, at all, in any shape or form like what you described. But even silver spoon people, let's go the extreme other side of the spectrum, where they wanted for nothing, and they, Ivy League school, whatever, they're flying around fucking Gulf Streams on their vacations. You could use that as an excuse to, like, I don't need to work hard. Or I know a couple people who are in their boat, and they're like, you know what? I don't feel like I have earned the way that you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I grew up, and they did something completely different with the same starting point. And I'm sure it's not across the board. People who live through what you lived through find it to be positive, but it seems like you took a situation and used it to the best that you possibly could. I'm just curious.
Yeah.
I mean, I have had very few opportunities to talk to people who have lived through something like that. I mean, I can't even imagine. And I can only imagine that you would never want your own kids to experience anything like that.
Yeah, 100%. And so now that I'm I'm a father, and my parents were so shitty. The way I approach fatherhood is like, if I just do the complete opposite of what they did, I should be fine. And I have a lot to learn, and I don't know everything, but I tell my kids, I support them everything that they do. I don't, my boy being a boy, a male, I don't force things on him.
Mm-hmm. Are you affectionate with him?
Yeah, I am. I tell him that I love him. I tell him all the time. And then a big portion of why I tell him all the time that I love him and I kiss him all the time, every single day, is because I know I have friends that their kids, they're not going to experience that, and it gets to me every time. And so I tell them that. But I push them. I have both of them in jiu-jitsu.
They're going to be little savages.
Yeah. Yeah. I see them, and
I roll with some people who started when they were like 6, and I'm like, I fucking hate you. And their timing impeccable. They're just always early. People say like, oh, you can read people's minds. It's not that. Their timing is just so good that they're there, and they're also 5 steps ahead of what you're already thinking about, and I hate them.
They develop that way.
I know. That's why I despise them. I hope that they don't suffer a life-altering injury, but they have to sit off the mats for the rest of their life. My coach's kids, they're twins too. It's a boy and a girl. Savages, utter and complete savages. They just got their brown belts a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, these kids. Some of the videos I see, wizards.
Dude,
it's like a video game.
Yeah, it is, and it's going to serve them so well in life later on. And it's not the jiu-jitsu necessarily. It's the adversity. It's the getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. It's they're driven, or they are driving, or pushing themselves. That's what's going to make the difference for them over the course of life.
100%, which is the reason why I did it, because I feel I don't wish it on anybody, but I came out on top of that situation. So I'm like, how do I give that to my children, but not putting them through that exactly? And I think martial arts is the best way.
Do your mom and dad see you raising your kids in the opposite manner that they did?
Yeah.
Good.
And they tell me that I'm doing a great job. And they're, my kids, same with school, the kids smarter than me. Like I taught my son how to ride a bike, and my daughter too, but they want to skateboard because they've seen me skate a lot lately because of the whole COVID thing.
Yeah. You got some skating time on your hands.
Yeah. So I taught him how to ride a skateboard, and my son ran up to me and he's like, oh, thank you, I know how to ride a skateboard. Like he went like 10 feet only.
Yeah.
But he was like,
which is a massive victory to him.
Yes.
Yep.
And he was like, oh, thank you so much. He's like, I want to be like you. And I told him, I was like, you're better than me. Yeah. I'm like, at your age. I told him, and then he looked at me like all confused. And this was last week. I was like, at your age, I wasn't as brave, as smart. I didn't know jiu-jitsu. I was like, you're better than me.
My kids are the same way. And I could point at multiple things on each one of my kids, and they are light years ahead of where I am.
Yeah.
And I think that's how you keep moving the rock forward. That's how we evolve as a society and as a country. I think it's the way it's supposed to be.
100%. And of course, my childhood has to do a big part of it, but I'm a big believer in once you put a life in here, your main responsibility is for that life to be better than you in every way, Yeah.
I think that's really the goal of a parent is to, or as a man in general, I would like to think that I leave anything 1% better than when I arrived here. That would be success for me, and I have no doubt that my kids will be able to do exactly that.
100%. So I'm doing that, the being a father. So now, like I said, when I first got out, I did the math, and I spend less time, more time away from him. But now I'm on the positive side of that. And
it's years that he'll remember, the formative years, which is, it's almost, I don't want to say it's better, but it probably is better that you did that amount of time in years that they will struggle to remember at all. And and I love it, and I want them to learn. So that's why I'm very open with him, and I tell him that I love him, but I'm not perfect. And when I got out, on the outside, it looked like everything was great. I'm getting A's and B's, but things started creeping up, and sometimes I would raise my voice, and then immediately be like, no, that's not the right way. And I'm sorry for raising my voice. I'm like,
you're not supposed to be playing when you're eating dinner, but I'm like, that's not how you communicate with somebody.
The fact that you were able to recognize that and do that, I think, is huge.
Yeah.
Have your parents ever apologized to you?
No.
That's it's powerful and it's meaningful, and it might take them doing that to begin the healing process of your guys, further the healing process of your guys' relationship, because at least you guys have a relationship.
Yeah.
Saying you're sorry is a fucking powerful thing.
Yeah. And
it's not a sign of weakness either. It's a sign of strength.
100%. And unfortunately, it's viewed that it's a weakness thing.
Especially in like the masculine side of the house, which is so stupid.
Yeah.
So stupid.
It is. And that's why even more I speak about certain things and stuff like this, and then seeking help to go see a therapist or my main purpose of the platform is to I say to educate, inform, and motivate. And I'll say stuff that I know it's not, people don't say like, hey, go see a therapist. Active duty members or in the veteran community, it's not cool. But I know I can get away with it because, unfortunately, of the fact that I was a special operations guy. Because like, who's gonna tell me that I'm not physically, mentally tough? So then I'll say like, hey, I started seeing a therapist. I did DMT, and then I realized this and that, and it's helped me. And or saying like, hey, this is my friend, Eric, who I met at school, and he's helped me so much, and he's motivated me and pushed me. And he is not a special operations guy. He is just a motivated, hard charging individual that I can learn from too.
I think that's a huge step that people from the special operations world can take. And that is to realize it's okay to be motivated by people who don't wear a beret or fill in the blank, right?
Yeah.
Whatever stupid object, which is what it is at the end of the day. It's a physical object, whether it be a uniform item, a pin, a beret, an award, whatever it is. That's great. And maybe they'll bury you with that because it means something to you. But there is a world full of people that can teach you so many amazing and wonderful things if you can get out of your own fucking way.
100%. And that's why I say those things, because I feel like it needs to be said and people need to hear it. And like from my friend Eric, who I met, like, first of all, to become, like I said, the vast majority are women, right? 90% of people in that field are women. What are the chances of when I enter the senior being a hard charging Marine, and then him being the president of the Student Dietetics Association, and then him and I became friends? And he's a fucking killer. We ran a marathon together. We did the Cactus to Clouds hike, which is like known for the longest, toughest day hike in the United States. We did that. We're working on an Ironman. And he's taught me a lot. He motivates me. People are like, like, how do you stay motivated and stuff like that? I'll be like him.
Dude, it's all around you.
Yeah.
Motivation is all around you. If you can get out of your own way.
Yes.
I think that's what more people stumble on than anything is I don't want to listen to this person because he doesn't have XX or X, Y, and Z. It's like, no, man, get out of the way. And with that, take something from the person, the spec ops do, but don't take it in totality. That's another thing. Like I said, the snake oil salesman. First off, always take each person as an individual. And if they're doing weird shit, it needs to be addressed. You get no free passes regardless of the uniform that you used to wear. And the communities are comprised of individuals, so treat people as individuals and be very cautious when people try to start speaking for an entire community.
100%.
This is what the Rangers, it's like, alarm.
Yeah. And then no one is perfect. There is not one individual who, who's flawless. He's like from when he was a private to got out flawless. No, he probably did stupid shit. Everyone does stupid things. It's okay, but you got to learn from your mistakes so you don't do them and teach the younger guys so they don't do it, and so on and so on. So yeah, fuck,
dude, your story is incredible. From before in the military, what you're planning to do afterwards, it's awesome. And
I didn't see it that way because in the military, like being a Ranger, everybody was doing what I was doing.
Yeah.
So it wasn't anything special, you know. I'm going to school, you know. Well, the people, my peers are going to school too, so it's not a big deal. But then, you know, people who would message me and my wife and friends would be like, hey man, like, you know, you have a responsibility that is on you. And I realized that, and you know, people just need hope and they need to see something. And I like to use social media for positive things. I don't argue with anybody. I have a no argument policy. I don't argue with anybody online. I don't read any comments that are bad. And if they are bad, I do. Thank you for taking your time to comment. Have a good day.
Yeah. Which twists people off even more.
Yeah. They'll stop.
Yeah.
You know, they'll stop. And then, so I use it for positive ways and to meet people. And at the same time, I'm doing all this, but I was also doing it for my own reasons, as in, you know, I was recruiting because I want to make friends. And then I know it's Southern California. I know there's more. And that's how I've met other Rangers, you know, SEALs. And that's how I got to shoot with Mike, his fucking last name, O'Dale. He's a SEAL guy.
Okay.
Mike O'Deal, damn it, sorry, I forgot your last name. But but I did a shooting course with him.
Awesome.
And I realized how terrible I was at pistol, you know.
As we all are. Pistol's a bitch.
Yeah, and plus people think that you're in the military, you're a master of every single weapon system. It's not true.
Baseline, borderline incompetent on most.
Yeah.
Except for a couple. And like, okay, I got this sucker dialed.
Yeah.
Everything else, I'm like, I think I can get it to go bang in a safe direction.
Yeah.
That's basically what it comes down to. Where can people find you to support you or reach out or connect with you?
So, I use it to, and I meet people all the time. You know, like some dude.
Obviously, stop a white limousine driving, and that could be Angel. But
well, before that, somebody recognized my BMW because I would take the bucket BMW that I still have and I love. I don't know if I got to fix sooner or later. But he saw me on the freeway, or right before you enter the freeway.
On the on ramp.
Yeah, and he stopped on his motorcycle and he's like, Angel, and I was like, yeah, and he's like, dude, he's like, I messaged you about your boxing gym like a couple weeks ago, and I was like, yeah, dude, come and train. I tell people all the time, come and train.
Yep.
And a few have taken it up on me, but I mean it. Come and train. Too.
I tell people the same thing all the time too.
Yeah.
Get on the mats.
So, I do all this, and I do shooting courses and stuff like that, and I gotta fund it, right? And my wife told me, like, hey, what you're doing is great, but like we don't have that type of money. Like you gotta stop.
Yeah.
You know, like spending so much money.
Don't stop. Find a different way.
Yeah. So, yeah, I did. So I started my own company. It's a clothing company, and I'm into Halloween. And then in my combat footage, I'm wearing skeleton gloves. And I know I'm not the first guy to do it.
What's the deal with Halloween? Why does it have such a hook in you? Because you gave me the stickers. I did. I noticed there's a massive pumpkin on it.
Which is the first thing I sold, and it's actually my son drew that. So my first design was actually got tattooed as well. I just like Halloween type stuff, and I always find it cool or scary. Like,
yeah. Do you like horror movies?
Actually, no.
Oh, these are cool, man.
So obviously with like the cool guy pictures and stuff like that, companies want to give you stuff, and if the company gives back to the community, I'm willing to help, or however I can. So like dudes would send me a shirt, and I'll take a picture, and they'll be like, "Is this your shirt?" And I'm like, "No, it's this guy's shirt. Go buy from them." I'm not a businessman, or I never saw myself as a businessman. But Ryan, he's like, "Dude, like, you should," he was one of the dudes like, you need to make this thing that you're about to create official. Like, you're a businessman. I'm like, I'm not a businessman. He's like, dude, you're about to sell shirts, stickers, and stuff like that. That's a business.
Yep.
And
you'll be a businessman the second you start thinking of yourself like one.
Yeah, and he helped me. He actually went to USC for business, so I should have listened to him from the beginning. So I'm not creative and stuff like that, so I didn't know what to make, and I just didn't want to do like what people usually do, something with the skull and crazy. And I'm like, It's a Ranger, buy it because I'm a Ranger. And my son obviously gets a lot of stuff from me, and he would draw a bunch of Halloween stuff. And then one day I'm watching The Office with my wife, and he brings that pumpkin. He's like, I do this for you. And I was like, oh, this is awesome. Like, this is cool. And I was like, okay, how do I fund what I have to fund? Also not work at fucking yogurt shops because I was hating my life. I'm like, maybe I should do this business thing. And my first thing is I made 100 stickers of the pumpkin that my son drew. And I was like, let's just see if anybody wants it. And I was like, hey, who wants a free sticker? And that fucking day, all the 100 were spoken. So then I have my wife, because I have shitty writing, writing 100 envelopes and sending them to places in the country where I'm like, dude, I didn't even know anybody even fucking cared.
Yeah.
Or even followed or whatever. Places in France, Spain. So it's called the OG Pumpkin. So you can follow that.
OG Pumpkin, Oscar Golf.
Yeah, the OG Pumpkin. And then my Instagram is Angel G Cortes 175. So I go to school, I run the business, and I use the funds to do the shooting ranges and stuff like that, and also, but like, it's not just like I'm fucking some saint. Like, it helps me not work at fucking yogurt shops.
Yeah, and that's okay. It's okay to actually. You watch guys from the Spec Ops background; they're often hesitant to talk about ideas to make money or to say, "Hey, I'm selling this to support my own personal desires and endeavors." It's totally okay.
Yeah.
So don't be ashamed of saying, "Hey, I'm selling this to make a profit so I can do shit that I think is awesome."
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that.
So I do that, and then I love the veterans, but I come from shit neighborhoods, so like I sometimes would buy Target cards and put like $400 and be like, hey, if you need money, and then I would take a picture of the gift card and then be like, yo, the limit is $40, buy $40 worth of stuff, and it works. But it's getting bigger and people are catching up, so like I gotta stop doing that because I don't want some shithead to spend off $400.
Yeah.
I do that, and I use it to connect people, and I'm not the only one, because when I first got out, I met some Rangers, and they're like, "Yo, there's a lot of Rangers here in SoCal and Green Berets and stuff like that, but they're too cool to fucking hang out, or they're scared to hang out." So I started doing that, and I didn't think I would be the hub for some of the interactions, in the meetups, but I have. But then there's also some dude named Dick Loza, and he would fucking throw veteran barbecues, and there's like 50 people, and dudes who were in the same unit, same fucking time, they would meet there and like, dude, I didn't even know you were here.
Yeah.
And he's that happens to him every single event, so I call myself an active member of the veteran community.
That's a good way to describe it.
And there's a lot of dudes out there and who I followed and I see what they're doing, so I want to do it because it gives me a sense of purpose, and a man needs purpose.
I agree.
So I'm doing that, but I want to become a registered dietitian, but I just like a lot of people, I see things that are happening on in the world. You got people hating cops, and people want to simplify a lot of things, but the world is not that simple. And are there shit cops? Yeah, but there's also good cops. Yeah, so for someone to be like, all cops are good, and if you don't support cops, then fuck you, and it's like, that's not the case, man.
Yeah.
So I feel like I'm still young, I'm healthy, and I feel like I have the ability to do things to help for good. And my wife tells me like, yo, it's hard for me to let it go, I think, especially because I'm young, and I got to the point where I messaged somebody who I knew was fighting in Syria. He was with was it YPG or YPG?
I believe so, yes.
And I messaged him like, yo, man, like, I'll go over there, I'll support, and then the next, like a year later, Rangers were going over there to fight ISIS and stuff like that. But I feel like I'm not done, or maybe I do need to just let it go, and then. But I know dudes who we have this thing for a lot of us, and I don't. That's like maybe like the $1 million question is, how do we all let it go and just maybe move on?
I don't have the answer to that. I don't think I don't think you'll ever be able to let it go. You will always probably for the rest of your life be Angel the Ranger to a lot of people who know about you. So whether or not you can completely let it go, that is different than you being able to completely move away from it. I wouldn't worry about letting it go. I would worry about finding a purpose and taking the experiences, both good and bad, from our previous careers and making somebody's life better because of it. And a perfect example of that is what we're doing right now, talking about our shared experiences and what you've been able to do with that and how you've been able to leverage that for other amazing things in your life. I have said often before, if you touch war, I think it will touch you back. And you can't escape that touch. And I think maybe it's more than a touch. It might be a clasped fist around your arm or your clothing or something.
Yeah.
And that'll probably be there for the rest of your life. And that's okay. I'm not the same person that I was before my military career. And I don't think it would have been possible for me to be because of those experiences. So to me, it's less about letting it go and more for me, I focus on not letting it define me, moving past it, but not worrying about it. If it's still, I'll have a mark from it for the rest of my life.
I agree, and I say that war is a drug because
you see it in the guys who can't let go and they deployment after deployment and then they get out and contract and then they're dead.
Yeah. I had somebody because I do these link ups, so if people are willing to meet up, I'll meet up. And he wanted to meet up, but it was also a recruiting thing. He's like, hey, so glad that we met up for, had a beer and stuff like that. He's like, you ever thought about contracting?
Ah, fuck.
And I was like,
not the right venue.
And but I say that war is a drug because it is the best drug, and not to glorify war, but like when you see a movie like let's say Blow, you see the cool things at the beginning, but at the end, what I like about it is that, and a lot of people don't want to pay attention to, is the downfall, the ugliness. And war.
Yeah, that motherfucker's in prison.
Yeah, war has both things. It's it was the best and worst thing I've ever done with my life, but it built bonds and love with these men that I didn't really know, but now I consider brothers, I've never felt so high, so alive, but at the same time, never felt so down, never so bummed out.
Yeah.
And I've been doing all these things, but to be honest, it's because I'm chasing a high. It's short-lived. Little victories and accomplishments. I remember when I got my first degree, we're at a party and it's like, you're the first one in your family to go to college. You should be so stoked. But it had been 2 hours since I got the diploma, and it was funny. It was my dad. He's like, all this is just extra for you, isn't it? And I was like, what? He's like, you feel like you should have, died a long time ago in war, or you miss it because you're not that happy. I was like, yeah. I was like, a lot of things that I do is just to get that, or what do you want to call it? I would go fight and and compete, and I would lose, but sometimes I would win, and you get your hand raised, and by the next day, that sense of accomplishment for me is already gone. Same with my diploma, and then same like I went to my last Muay Thai tournament. I made it to semifinals, broke my foot, and then I was fucking on the couch, and then as soon as the doctor told me I was good to go, 5 months later, I ran a marathon for the first time. And then because I wanted to feel accomplished, and then I wasn't happy with the time, and then I ran another one 3 months later. But it was like people see like, oh, that's all cool. But it's like I'm chasing something that I know I'm never gonna get. And this was one of the reasons why I was so happy to sit down with you, to ask you, what is the answer?
Fuck, man. I don't have an answer to that question, and I hear some of myself in you describing that. It's people say, "Oh, you were a SEAL," and to me, it's not that big of a deal. I'm surrounded by people who could fucking crush me at any skill. You know what I mean? I was average amongst a peer group of just completely unaverage people. Wingsuit base jumping for me was pursuing a rush or a challenge. Jiu-jitsu for me is more of a mental game for myself. And, maybe it's even an exercise in losing, not having your hand raised and being able to be okay with that too. Because I can't live the rest of my life comparatively with other people with a measuring tape. Because for every they say you're good with a rifle, there's somebody better.
Yeah.
You're good with a pistol, there's somebody better. You're good at Muay Thai, you're going to find somebody who's better. And at some point, you're not going to physically be able to search for anybody else in any other avenue, and you're going to be stuck with yourself. And I think, maybe one of the difficult things for people like us is accepting who you are and what you are for exactly those things, and giving up that desire to be more, to always be better than. And I think a lot of that comes from being reinforced in the military. The constant sayings, hey, you're only as good as your last target. Hey, you're only as good as your last training evolution. So it doesn't matter what you did yesterday, because tomorrow's right around the corner. And that leaves a mark if you're constantly being judged and measured on every single thing. But I don't think that's the way to live life. I don't think it's the way. Let me take that back. I don't think that's the way to live a happy life. I think if you live your life like that, you'll find yourself on your deathbed looking back, wishing that you hadn't. Because all the other measurements were for outside affirmation. It was a measurement that other people could see, and you could hold up and be like, oh, look at this, look at that, look at this, look at that.
Yeah.
But I don't know the answer to it. And saying that doesn't mean that I don't struggle with that, because I absolutely do struggle with that. And maybe that's the way it'll be for the rest of my life. But I think at some point you have to let it go.
I agree. And I've seeked help, I don't have like the Hollywood PTSD where I'm like, I hear a loud noise and I go to the ground or wherever, but I have things from it.
That is what you just described, is that it's mostly, that's Hollywood post-traumatic stress. I hate the portrayal of post-traumatic stress. Like I said, if you touch war, and you can attest to this or not, it touches you back, period. I'm not the same person.
Yeah.
My sense of humor is fucked up.
Yeah.
I laugh at shit that other people would probably pass out from.
Oh, yeah.
And all of my friends do too. They're like, that's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
I have a video of a dude who's looking down the barrel of an AK because it's between his legs, and it shoots his hat off. I cry laughing.
Yeah.
Most people are like, you are a fucking piece of shit. Like, that's not funny. To me, it's hilarious. I don't think I had that mentality before I went in. It's really hard to offend me. Blood and guts doesn't bother me. Maybe it should. Killing doesn't bother me. Maybe it should. Those aren't portrayed in Hollywood, and maybe because it's too complicated to unpack. But yeah, I have issues from it too. And I think part of that, maybe moving forward and just putting it down, is being comfortable with that and realizing that, as much, even if you seek all the therapy and help in the world, maybe war is more of a birthmark than a tattoo. A tattoo you could laser off. I don't think you can with a birthmark.
100%. And I quickly realized that your sense of humor, for sure, is not in school.
Imagine a veteran text thread that were to make its way to just Instagram.
Yeah.
People would have some very serious issues with how most, especially the community I come from, communicate with each other.
Oh, yes.
It would not be favorable. It would probably actually make Fox News.
100%. 100%. I would lose a lot of my friends from school, that's for sure. Yeah. And I knew our sense of humor was different, but not till I experienced it at school. And then also not just at school, but just outside. I remember I went to the comedy store and I saw Rogan perform. And I picked up my friend from LAX. We had gone to Iraq together, and I was like, dude, I'm gonna surprise him, take him to the comedy store. And then a bunch of comedians were there, and one of them was Rogan. I remember when Rogan started, everybody was laughing, and as he was progressing, less people were laughing, and at the end it was only my friend and I. And then I look around, and people are looking at us like shaking their heads in disgust. And I
probably was testing out some of his new shit.
Oh, I fucking loved it.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, it's not just school, it's here too.
Yeah. It touches you, man. And I think it's a lifelong journey. And I wish I had an answer for you.
Yeah.
I don't. I struggle with the same stuff. And I think everybody does. Maybe less people are willing to talk about it openly, but that outside affirmation, that outside metric, it's a dangerous. Fuck. I'm 43 years old. How much longer am I going to be able to measure myself against other people before it always doesn't go my way? And then where am I left? You know, miserable, crotchety dude. Like, I mean, probably, but that's not how I want to live. That's not what I want to. That's not what I want to look back on my life as, either.
Yeah. And yeah, I've been seeking help for that. Like, and I'm not like a druggie, but like, you know, I did DMT because I hear a lot of good positive things.
Yeah.
And which was a great experience. Which, by the way, I did in the back of the limo.
Of course. I mean, if you have a limo, why wouldn't you?
And good things came out of it, but that didn't get answered.
Maybe there's no answer.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not smart enough to give you one. Maybe there's a professional out there that can reach out to both of us and provide some insight or guidance. But I mean, I'll be the first to tell you when I bump up to the boundaries of my experience or knowledge, and I don't have an answer to that one.
You know, I'm okay with that. And also, I feel more I feel okay the fact that you said that. You know, because like, for example, when I first saw it, you know, I told you, sir.
Yeah.
Well, it's because like
and what did I immediately say? Don't ever call me sir.
Yeah. But you know, I look up to people, and it's hard for people to say that, and especially when I'm 30, you know, but I still look up to people, and I do
too.
I see you and other people, and the fact it makes me feel good, because sometimes I'm just like, fuck, is there, you know, not necessarily what's wrong with me, but like, what am I missing? Like, how is it that I can't get this? But it feels good to hear someone else say that.
Yeah, I don't think you're missing anything. I think that's the journey. And some people are more willing to talk about it than others. And I think it's helpful for people to talk about it. I wish more people would. I really don't think that our situation is actually that unique. You know, the human struggle, I mean, we have some really weird and bizarre, unique experiences, but at the end of the day, I think 99% of our life will be the typical struggles that everybody else encounters. Maybe we have some better tools to deal with it because of those experiences, but we're all in it together, as far as I can tell. And the more laps around the sun that I get, the more convinced I am of that.
Yeah.
So if you came here for answers, I got none.
Well, I came here for, you know, to meet you, and honestly, I couldn't believe it. I was.
What, that I reached out to you?
Yeah, because like, it's weird, because like, for podcasts, like, it's like, how does it even work? Do they reach out, or do you reach out?
I don't know the answer to that one either. Sometimes it's both.
Yeah.
I reach out to people. Sometimes people reach out to me. I get asked all the time, how do you pick the guests that you want to sit down and talk with? I'm like, if they're an interesting person, of course I want to talk about them or talk with them. I don't give a shit about myself.
Yeah.
I care about other people's experiences.
And I appreciate, you know, you saying yeah, because I mean, summer school had just ended, and then I'd been on by chance on Mike Glover's podcast, and it was because of a friend, and
yeah,
and I was like, oh, you know, people are like, you're like, yo, when's your next podcast? Like, I'm at school, and then
I'm living life, bitch. Get off the podcast.
Yeah, so I was like, okay, well, all right, let's see. And then I put the question up, like, what podcast do you think?
That is right. That's where I saw that. Somebody tagged me in that.
And a bunch of people were like, Andy Stump, and I was like, man, I've heard him on Rogan. Like, he ain't. I'm not sure if I'm on that level, but
trust me, I'm not actually on the level to deserve being on Rogan either. He just happens to be a friend of mine.
And you know, you said yeah, and I was like, that's super dope. I told my wife I was gonna mention this before I forget. So people were like, yo, who said yes? You know, and then I was like, okay, hey, things are lined up. I'm gonna go to do 2 podcasts, and then they're like, who? And I just said, I was like, hint, former soft, and somebody was like, Brian Callen.
He is the founder of JSOC.
Yeah, and if a lot of people don't know is, if Andy decides to be president, Brian Callen will be defense secretary because of his background and everything that he knows.
He's the only living survival of the Civil War.
100%.
So he's got so much of a robust military experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fucking Callen, man. God damn it. Are you, because you drove here from Washington, right?
No, I drove here from Southern California.
What?
Yeah, because so.
I thought you were on like a family vacation.
Well, this podcast turned into one,
okay.
Which I appreciate.
Is your family here with you?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah. So I when you said yeah, I looked into flights, and
it's dog shit.
Yeah.
Airlines are working at like 5% of capacity.
Yeah.
It used to be like 5, 6, 7, 10 options a day.
Yeah.
Not today.
I was like, well, fuck. I was like, all right, what do I do? I was like, I'll just drive there.
It's actually a pretty cool drive.
It is. It's a beautiful drive. And then my wife was like, well, we have friends in Washington. And then I was like, I'm not sure how many hours it is from a detour, but to be honest, I didn't even care. I was like,
and it depends in Washington State, whether you're on the eastern side, northern, you know what I mean?
yeah.
So what do you guys got planned after this?
We're going to go back to Washington because I have to be at Dallas on the 12th
Okay.
to do Mike Ridland's podcast.
There you go. Nice.
And so
Mike's a good dude. You'll have a good time.
I'm super stoked.
Yep.
I can't believe it. But yeah, I couldn't believe it. So I was like, that's super stoked. I'm super stoked. And then I was like, let's just see all of our friends that we haven't seen in a long time, because unfortunately, like, your brothers, and you will always be brothers, but everyone goes in different paths. And, you know, you got some guys in Arizona, Nevada, Washington, and California.
Yeah.
And I was like, it's a perfect time to see everybody.
Yeah. The road trip's an awesome idea.
Yeah.
Please tell me you brought the limo.
I didn't.
I don't want to talk to you.
I was trying to convince my wife, like, we have more room in the limo, the kids will have fun. But she's like, she's like, what if it doesn't make it in that the area between California and Oregon, you know, with the
So here's some legitimate concerns.
Yeah.
She's making reasonable arguments.
Yep.
Probably best that you didn't bring the limo.
Yeah, so I was like, okay, we won't take the limo.
Fuck. We would have driven that fucker down the main street of Dallas. Well, dude, let me get you back to your family. We've been at it for 2.5, almost 3 hours.
Jesus.
Thank you for making the trip, man. It's been awesome. And yeah, let's stay in touch, and hopefully we can help, or I can help move what you got going on down the road for you a little bit.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, man.
You know,
thanks for making the time.
If you're ever in Southern California, want to roll or whatever, let me know.
Yeah, but I want white belts only that know nothing, not some fucking black belt and a white belt.
I'm a white belt.
Perfect.